Good afternoon, and welcome to episode 12 of Tomorrow's World Audit Time. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, Russ.
Now, eagle-eared listeners might notice that I use a different introduction there, and that's because you forced me to get up at the ungodly hour of 2 o'clock in the afternoon to record this episode. I hope you've got a good reason, Mark. I'm very. If I'm a bit slow on the uptake this episode, it's because I'm bleary-eyed. I've barely made it. I had to set my alarm and everything.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And in fact, you're lying to the audience members because A, we started recording at 2 o'clock. It's now 2:30 when we've actually started recording. And B, it's 3:30 where you are anyway.
Oh, yeah, so it is. Okay, what should we say about this episode? So it comes from the 10th of December, 1993. It was the 1 year. It was the 1 year where we had the biggest gap. So we've done an episode from 1990 and we've done an episode from 1996. Seemed like there's a bit of a gap there, so split the difference. We've done 1993. I had a look to see what interesting things happened in 1993. Turns out not a lot of interesting things happened in 1993 until I hit December, and then suddenly it burst out at me. The computer game Doom was released on the 10th of December 1993. In my opinion, one of the greatest and most important computer games ever made. Any memories of Doom, Mark?
I do vaguely remember. I have stronger memories of Wolfenstein, which was the game that came out before and is nowhere near as good as Doom. But I do remember Doom coming out. And actually, I've been rewatching videos where people talk about it because I was aware of how important it is viewed in terms of computer games. I'm aware of like how it sits near like the pinnacle of like just important kind of keystones to computer game development. I'm also aware that people think it really still holds up despite the fact that it's approaching 30 years old. And the thing I remember most wasn't the 3D because I felt like I'd seen that before. And, in 1993, I had a SNES and you could play F-Zero and Pilot Wings and all, Star Fox. The thing that astonishes me even to this day is how bloody fast it is.
Yeah.
How intense it is and how kind of you still get a sense of like, even though everything's kind of really primary colors, like the sense of threat around every corner holds up. So I don't think I remember quite as well as you, but I do remember it coming out. But then I also do remember mostly I was a SNES person in 1993, I was Super Nintendo all the way. So this is a PC gaming thing and that always felt to me like some kind of weird grown-up or more grown-up world, of gaming, kind of populated with, like older teenage nerds who, I don't know, probably smelt or something like that. That's really what I associated Doom with, which has nothing to do with the game and everything to do with people who played it. Why, Russ, did you play it?
Of course, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm quite the reverse. I've never owned a Nintendo because I've always thought of them as Fisher-Price toys, essentially, of the computer gaming world. Childish nonsense. I've only ever owned computers. And yeah, so but obviously in 1993, my parents are nowhere near rich enough to buy me a PC. I had a Commodore Amiga, the greatest computer ever made. I only ever played PC games around my friends' houses. So the first time I ever played Doom was around my friend Stuart Reeves' house. His parents were quite well off because his dad was an arms dealer, I think. So he had a lovely PC, and I remember going around there and seeing that first. I remember seeing that first opening level, and there's a bit in the opening level where you look out of a window, and in the background there's sort of like mountainous tropical jungle sort of thing in the background. It's clearly just a photograph that's been digitized. But I saw that, and to my eyes, it looked exactly like real life. Like, I looked at it, I went, this is just a representation of real life. And it totally blew my mind. Obviously now, if you look at it, it's like it's really pixelated and doesn't look like real life at all. But there's something about computer graphics that the first time you see whatever the most advanced version of it is, you think it looks like real life. Your brain somehow fills in the gaps, and it just looks like real life to you. And it's only when a newer, better version comes along that you go, oh, no, hang on a minute, there's actually things wrong with that previous version. But at this point, it just totally blew my mind. And I think that, within, 20 or 30 years' time, everyone's going to be using virtual reality, aren't they? Everybody's going to be...
We're all going to be living in the metaverse.
Yeah, we'll be jacked into the metaverse. And
otherwise we'll be nobody.
And if when somebody does, if they still have documentaries in the future, when somebody does like a history of virtual reality, I think the clear starting point will be Doom as the thing that kicked everything off. I think it's that important. I think
I don't disagree with you. I think I was always familiar with it as being, as I say, like as being this key moment when gaming changed. It's a slight exaggeration, but like before Doom, there was Super Mario Brothers, and then after Doom, there's basically every game we ever play or becomes big. All this phrase, these AAA games, they only exist because of Doom. Not least because I think Doom was a kind of a proof of concept that you could produce a game that could really genuinely explode as, purchasable pop culture. I mean, now obviously famously, like computer games outstrip the income of Hollywood by multiple times.
Yes, yeah.
A computer game release can make hundreds of millions in the first week, not like tens of millions, but like hundreds of millions around the world. A billion around the world in a week of release. And, there's no sense, and because it's a home thing, there's no sense that like, well, if I missed it at the box office, so I'll wait 6 months and watch it for free on whatever. It's like, no, that game is still as good in 6 months' time and people are still buying it in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, it's, and part of that is Doom. And then the other thing, as I was saying to you, is like, the other thing, my stronger, profounder memory of realizing, I suppose, what computer games could be was when my Uncle Paul showed me Elite on his PC, which, I don't know, it was probably 4 years before this, because at that point, like I had a Game Boy, which I absolutely adored. And, you'd play Super Mario Land and that and stuff like that. And then I remember my Uncle Paul showing me Elite, which is this wireframe thing. I mean, it doesn't hold up terribly brilliantly, but it was the first time I'd ever seen that kind of 3D. And it just completely, I remember it's one of those moments where you can feel yourself, you can almost feel your brain expand as you begin to realize that there is a whole possibility out there that you were unaware of. And it just, that really blew me away. I mean, I remember trying to play it. It was boring as nonsense. But it was epically cool to kind of sit there, quote unquote, piloting a spacecraft. And it came in a 5.5 inch floppy disk, and a bit like Doom. I don't know if it came on 1 or 2 3.5 inch floppy disks, but it still blows my mind. I mean, you look at the amount of gigabytes you have to download for a game these days, and yet here was Doom, which was a tiny amount of memory required or a tiny amount of storage or whatever is the right phrase. Even to this day, I think because I've been reading about Doom, obviously Google is now suggesting I read every article that is now about Doom, and I think somebody has managed to upload Doom to the digital display of a pregnancy test.
Well, yeah, here we go, Mark. I looked into this. Yeah. I looked into this. I made a little list of, because can it run Doom is something of an internet challenge. Because Doom was so well programmed. So there's these days when people program computer games, they use various sort of tools and engines and things like that, which means there's multiple layers of programming language that they're built upon. Whereas Doom was built in a programming language called C, which is only one thing above literally
binary?
Just typing. Basically, machine code, like assembly language. Yeah. So because of this, because it's programmed in such a basic language, anything with a microprocessor in it can theoretically run Doom. So I found a list of things that people have managed to successfully run Doom on, which I think is a testament to actually how unnecessarily advanced some things are. So we've got a printer, screen of a digital camera, an original iPod, cash machine.
Yeah, I think I see that.
A portable plate edge beveling machine, which is the thing that puts plastic strips on the edge of furniture. Which is incidentally might come in handy later in this episode. As you say, pregnancy test, the readout on a vape, 100 pounds of mouldy potatoes connected to a calculator. And then somebody has worked out that theoretically 16 billion crabs, but they've not done it yet. So, but you know for a fact that there's some rebel millionaire somewhere who's collating crabs as we speak. Just so
it's interesting. In the last 2 episodes, both in real life and fictional life, we have ended up talking about Bond villains. So it seems only fitting that in this episode we start imagining what one of these might do. 16 billion crab powered Doom engine. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
Imagine the disappointment when the FBI investigate and realise, it's just an engine to play Doom and not some kind of apocalyptic destruction. Yeah. I know, it's incredible, isn't it? It's just absolute testament to how tight and well made that game was. And genuinely, and the more you look into it and the more educated and informed people explain to you why it is brilliant, the more you understand why it is brilliant, which I know is a stupid thing to say, but it's like, it's not just, because Doom then got wrapped up in so much, especially in America. I don't think so much. I mean, here we had, video nasty scares, but over there they had they had the satanic scare. But then I also think they were trying to come to terms with certain level of violence in the real world.
Yeah.
And things like Doom always seem to get dragged into conversations about, what is this doing to our children? And all of which was errant nonsense. But I do think that has slightly, on the one hand, it probably slightly tarnished its name for a period. Yeah. But on the other hand, only goes to show just how revolutionary it was that, it threatened so many people's understanding of what they thought the world was, because a couple of guys managed to make a really convincing 3D shoot 'em up.
Yeah, totally. I think that there is still, even now, to this day, a sort of negative connotation to playing computer games. If you say to people, "Oh, I was playing," I spent the weekend playing computer games or something like that, more often than not, you always get, "Oh, you're such a nerd," or "You're such a, what waste of time."
What a waste of time. Yeah.
And it's absolutely no difference to it than watching films or watching TV, or it's it's amazing that it is now the world's biggest industry by a massive margin. Like it completely dwarfs television and
creative industry.
Creative industry. In terms of amount of people engaged and the amount of money it makes and things like that.
Yeah.
And yet still there's this sense that it's a kind of underground thing that people don't talk about. It never gets reported in the papers that much. It's almost like, because it's a new media, the old media just spends all of its time trying to squash it.
Yeah.
I'm not really I wouldn't even consider myself a gamer, because I'm absolutely shit at computer games. I play everything on easy mode. But there is nothing better. And if you're listening to this and you don't play computer games, I'm going to tell you that there is nothing better than putting on a computer game, maybe like a racing game or something like that, or something where you don't have to listen to them talk, and then just put on a podcast. Just playing a computer game while listening to a podcast is just such a pleasant experience. I can't recommend it enough. And it's what I do with most of my days these days, to be honest. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah, to be fair, if you're listening to this and you really haven't played computer games, you're unlikely to start now. But you're not wrong. I find it very. I don't like that as much as you do. But I would kind of go the like a good book route. I think if you're playing a computer game that has a really compelling story that you're a part of, that you are driving forward through your actions, there is nothing better than knowing that at the end of the day you get to go back and continue the story with people you like. I've always really loved that, and I've definitely played some games that have absolutely like they live in your mind. Like the way, when you have a really great book and you have to put it down because it's 3 a.m. and you got to get up. But then you're thinking about it. Every now and then it just pops back into your head. Like a really good computer game with a really great story is exactly like that, except that you get to be a part of it. You get to be a character and drive it forward. Yeah, it's interesting because it is. I don't think a lot of people, probably including ourselves, genuinely appreciate just how gigantic an industry it is.
No. It seems like, I think maybe it's the case that for some reason in society, introverted activities are frowned upon. So playing computer games, reading books, you're such a square that you're doing this. Whereas extroverted activities are rewarded, like playing music, singing, and things like that.
Being a town crier, people exactly, love these things.
Yeah. So I think that's probably part of it.
Yeah,
because playing, there's nothing more introverted than playing a computer game, because you're,
no,
it's you and
it's not terribly enjoyable for other people to watch somebody play a computer game.
No, not at all.
No, because they're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the episode. So 10th of December 1993. This is, as I said, halfway between 1990 and 1996, and it really does feel like it's halfway between 1990 and 1996, doesn't it? Because it really does. It has some aspects of the 1990 episode, and then it has some aspects of the 96 episode, and it's kind of like halfway on the continuum between them, isn't it?
I'm just putting up my little spreadsheet. So we talked about 1990 in episode 6. After we talked about 1996 in episode 4. And you can, I think with this episode, it does split the difference. And I think you can really tell where Tomorrow's World has been and how it will end up where it's going, which is the 1996 episode. It was quite weird, actually, how directly in between them it felt. Yeah, that was quite astonishing, actually. It wasn't something I was expecting in this particular epoch of Tomorrow's World.
I well remembered the epoch thing.
Thank you.
And a lovely treat. There's a new theme tune that we'd completely forgotten about, and I think it's,
yes, absolutely.
I think it's probably time that I played it. What do you reckon?
Yeah, let's go for it.
It's a cold, dark Friday evening, but somebody's got a warm glow tonight. 7 astronauts have spent the last week rebuilding the Hubble Space Telescope 300 miles above our heads. It's been hailed as one of the most complex and successful space missions ever. But what now for Hubble? Good question, mate. And talking of space, I bet you didn't know that bits of the space shuttle are held together by Velcro, and you'll be even more surprised by what Velcro's getting up to next. By the way, have you seen these? Ads for diet pills that claim to let you binge but not bulge. Very useful with Christmas approaching. Sounds good, but is it too good to be true? And a new screening technique for cervical cancer that's gone on trial in London this week. It promises instant results and hopefully less controversy about smear tests in future.
That's a cracker of a theme tune, Mark, I think. I really like that theme tune.
Yeah, I agree. I think we think it's the final one we had to catch Pokemon style. So I think that is them all, isn't it? Yeah.
I think so, yeah, unless there's any anomalies.
Secret. Oh, there probably is.
Yeah.
Don't worry, listeners. We'll track it down. No, it's a great one. It actually is a really good theme tune. And it does seem to be very of the time as well, in a positive way.
Yes, yeah. It has, I feel like there was just like a post-Berlin Wall feeling that everything was going to get better.
It's all going to be all right now.
So it's all going to be all right now. And the whole world is working together. Kind of like the early internet as well. Like the early web was like this as well. Everyone's working together for a better future, and everyone's cooperating. And there's something in that music that just has that sort of feeling about it. And it makes you excited for the future.
It does. It has a kind of, and again, I think we both picked up that like there's a kind of a global feeling to the tune, and it is that kind of sense of like, God, if we all pull together, do you know what? It's all going to be good. And that really does come across. I think we discussed in the episode when we were talking about 1990, I think we discussed the fact that it felt very optimistic, and the program felt very optimistic. I think I mentioned Fukushima, who said that we were in a post-history period, that basically we had a blank page that we got to write whatever we want. Meta narratives had finished. We weren't going to be governed by communism or fascism, blah blah blah, etc. etc. And that optimism, I think, is obviously not specifically tethered to those ideas, but there was a sense of optimism at this point. Now, there are things in this episode where they're highlighting errors, but it's all in service of progress.
Yes.
And it's in service of, you're right. And it does, you're also right that like that the early days of the internet did have, like it did seem like a utopia was possible.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Which isn't always, it isn't true, but it also doesn't always seem that way as well. So no, it's a really good tune. And actually it's interesting that as you and I listened to it, which we'd forgotten, I think. And it was one of those things when I heard it again for the first time, I was like, oh, I had forgotten this one. And the credits were absolutely, like, I remembered all the credits when I watched them. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this time. This is probably exactly when we were watching Tomorrow's World. I turned 13 a couple of months ago, and you turned 13. So you're still 12. You turned 13 in a couple of months from this point. So we definitely would have been watching. And it both reminded us of two tunes. People, this is not a music podcast. I'm sure there'll be people now who listen to that and can tell you exactly what it comes from. But for us, we heard this and said, oh, some other things totally rip this theme tune up.
Time Team shamelessly ripped this up. Like the Time Team theme tune is almost identical to this. I
assume you're going to play some in the podcast so people can hear the unabashed theft.
Time Team theme tune you can just hear.
Make it short. I never liked Time theme all that much, but like it's not a very good theme tune, but it does really feel like a rip-up of this.
Yeah.
But obviously, with a new theme tune comes a new opening credits to us on this podcast, obviously. And I will say this, I'm very much looking forward to the episode, whenever it might be, when we don't get a new theme tune and opening credits. Because even I am getting a bit tired. But anyway, here we go. All right, everyone, belt up, let's dive in. Because I think actually a lot of people will probably remember this quite well. It starts with a camera pans across a clearly stationary child's toy version of the British Airways Concorde. Like, it's quite small. I think it's supposed to give the illusion of flight, but the camera is clearly pivoting right. This is definitely one of the more difficult ones to describe because there's quite a lot of abstract imagery, which is probably also quite fitting for the 90s as well. There's a combination of motionless and slowly spinning metal discs, which reminded me initially, it was only when I really examined it. Initially, I thought there were lots of pots and pans spinning around. And that reminded me of a scene in Spaced, where I think Brian, the neighbour, flashes back to some of the art he used to do. And one of them is, I don't know, or maybe it was maybe it's time passing. I can't remember. But there's a shot where there's lots of pots and pans spinning around instead. And that's what this reminded me of. So I was quite flabbergasted when I slowed it down to watch and realised that there's not a single bit of kitchenware in this opening credit scene.
Isn't it like some sort of little robot made of flywheels, isn't it? That's what it looked like to me.
So these are the pots and pans that turn. The next thing you see is the little mechanical arachnid.
Yeah, but the spin. Yeah, no, the spinny wheel.
You think it's a robot?
Is it like a little robot car made of flywheels? That's what I thought it was.
Maybe you didn't watch it quite as closely as I did, Russ. Because at the same time I thought it was pots and pans from a kitchen. So there you go.
To be honest, Mark, I always leave this bit up to you, so I maybe don't watch it quite as closely as you do.
I guarantee that you don't. Yeah, because then actually we do get a little robot, which is a little kind of sort of stop motion mechanical arachnid. It's got 8 legs.
Obviously, you love a bit of stop motion always.
Yeah, we do.
Interesting that they have that, and then obviously there's the other one with the ant that comes afterwards. So maybe they thought we need to keep a bit of stop motion in this, so we'll reference it in some way.
I find this one a bit scarier, and I think it's because it waddles around in little, kind of needle point legs.
It could clamp to your face and inject your eyes or something.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever seen Guillermo del Toro's, I think it's his first proper film, maybe from the 80s, early 90s, and it's called Kronos. And Kronos was about, I'm going to mangle it because I didn't look up the plot, but my memory of it was, it's about kind of vampirism, but the device that sucks blood are these little mechanical kind of brass spiders that go around and they clamp to you. And kind of, their legs wrap around you and then they start kind of pulsating and pulling blood out from you. So, yeah, that's what that reminded me of. There we were talking about how optimistic the future is going to be, and this is what I was thinking of. We then get a sequence, a kind of montage of random shapes, and they're oddly lit. One of them looks like the MC Escher style stairway we see in the set later on. Mm-hmm. We then see what I've described as Steve Strange's Fade to Grey video projected onto a sheet of rectangular metal, question mark? I don't think it is, but it is kind of a scary kind of visage, kind of, a propeller from a medium-sized ship slowly turning. It's not a ceiling fan. It's clearly a ship's propeller.
Maybe it's the propeller from old Raymondo's boat. Right?
Well, I don't know. It looks like it's from a boat that cost slightly more than £2,000 or whatever it was. After that, then we get what I think is another one of the iconic scenes, which is this kind of helix of gas being burned, flames kind of move down the screen. We get our dove, and as the dove flies into screen, that's when we get the drums dropping out. Which is always a great moment.
My favourite theme tune. That dramatic pause where it just sort of goes on and the dove comes. It's like the dove flies. It's like the dove is about to achieve some magnificent feat. Like it's doing the long jump and it's breaking the Olympic record or something. Like it's
when in fact all it's doing is mostly what doves do.
It's stock footage of a dove.
Yeah, I mean, like if it was stock footage of Howard like actually flying and being the first person ever to fly, then maybe, but it wasn't. It was a dove. But it's a lovely moment.
But it does also tie into our idea of sort of world peace sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Better times ahead. Yeah. And then finally, kind of all finishes off with another kind of montage of random odds and sods and shapes. And I don't know. On closer inspection, it almost felt like they were filming the model they might have made of the set that we're about to see. But that's the opening credits. Starts off with Concorde and ends up with random shapes.
Yeah.
But the key thing here is the music. The music's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's not as hummable. It's not as earwormy as some of the other ones that we pretend are our favourites.
But it is. Can you? You can't hum drums.
You can't hum drums. No.
But I think it is aged as a visual experience. It is aged so much better than the CGI bilge fest
monstrosity
that we had, last week.
Yeah,
I'll say last week, even though we don't record these.
I know. No, we don't. And we definitely don't release them weekly.
Time moves so quickly in my brain. Yeah, and then we cut to Howard standing outside Television Centre next to.
He is. It's very cold.
He's next to a big old satellite, isn't he?
Satellite dish, yeah. And you can see the building in the background being lit up.
It's December the 10th, and he's outside, and it's night time. This intro amazed me because when I first watched this intro, I didn't really pay much attention to it because I was just, on the first watch, you let it wash over you. You don't really think about things.
Yeah.
And I spent the whole of the episode thinking, it looks kind of chilly in the studio. It's a very sort of like wintry feel to this episode like that. It's only on my second watch did I realise it's because Howard, at the very opening of the programme, goes, "It's really cold and dark out here outside TV Centre," and rubs his hands together, and he
does,
rubs his hands and all that.
Yeah.
So he basically he did a Derren Brown on me. He managed to neuro-linguistic program my brain into thinking the whole episode was really wintry and cold. It's very clever. I don't know whether that was his intention, but
I don't think it was. No. I don't think he expected someone quite as easily suggestible as you to be watching. 30 years in the future.
But the other notable thing is that it's the Howard show, isn't it? When the episodes do have these introductions, I mean, the older ones don't have these introductions. When the ones do have the introductions, we normally cut between the presenters at least a two-hander. It's normally, I mean, in this episode, you would expect it to be him and Judith cutting between each other to introduce all the various segments at the beginning. But it doesn't do that. And we know, and Judith is in this episode, but it's just Howard. Howard presents like the introduction to everything.
He throws a link to himself. He then catches the link he threw.
Yeah. Throws a link to himself and then acknowledges it by saying, "Oh, thanks, mate."
Yeah, good question, mate.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, I mean,
he's on his own, and we do know from later on that there are other scenes, there are other segments that are set in the studio, but there's only evidence of one other person being in the studio at the same time as Howard. It really is like he is broadcasting live.
Yeah.
And quite a lot of this has been pre-recorded during the week.
Yeah.
And he's the only one there.
So, I wonder what happened there. I mean, was it just a decision that, let everybody else have the day off? Or did Judith phone in sick? I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. But obviously, Howard, being the absolute professional that he is, does a great job.
He does a great job throughout, actually.
Yeah.
Everyone does a great job in this episode. No one really muffs it up. There's a little bit of it. Well, there's some issues later on we'll talk about. But no, it's all the presenting is professional. And he does bring I know one of the kind of TW tropes that we check, that I've added, is like Howard signing off with a really bad joke. But the truth is, he's always got a little glimmer of charisma and humour.
Yeah.
When things need to be serious, he takes them seriously. And when they don't, he's quite happy to make sure that you know that it's not as serious as some things.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's sort of dad humour, isn't it? It's not actually funny.
No.
But it's kind of endearing.
Though I've always got a sore spot for somebody linking to themselves and then them playing on the fact that they've just been linked to by themselves. You see me? That's always going to make me endeared to someone. Yeah.
So back to the theme tune. Would you like to know some theme tune facts?
Yeah, absolutely. I would. Yeah.
So I found out that it's by a man called Chris Blackwell. Obviously, I typed Chris Blackwell into Google, got very excited because the founder of Island Records is called Chris Blackwell. It is not the same Chris
No
Blackwell.
relation.
It's an entirely different one.
Got you.
It also isn't Cross and Blackwell, the manufacturers of soup.
No,
this bloke is, you might be surprised to learn, is a professional drummer. And after Robert Plant left Led Zeppelin, he was Robert Plant's drummer. So he's, got good pedigree. Wrote a few songs with him. He's not, his career hasn't been particularly exciting, but he's done loads of adverts and some various sports themes for TV. He also did the theme tune to both The Daily Politics and Breakfast with Frost.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, and that's all I could find out about him. He had quite an old-fashioned website. One of the things I really love about doing these episodes where they're kind of around the early days of the internet is that when I do this research, I quite often find websites that are from the early 2000s or late 90s or things like that.
Yeah.
It's just a really nice browsing the old web. And the fact that these websites still exist, even though they've clearly not been looked at for 20 or 30 years. And they've always got like a menu on them. And you'll click on the first couple and they'll work. And then the next one will say, it'll either say coming soon or under construction. And then you'll see that the website was last looked at.
In many ways, like the internet itself, full of unfulfilled promise.
Yeah. But it always cheers me up when I see one of these old school websites.
First, though, pin back your ears, put on your ear goggles, and listen to New York.
Clamour and din, Manhattan must be one of the noisiest, loudest places in the world, which is probably why half New Yorkers resort to using these. But to drown out all the street noise, you have to turn the volume way up high, and that doesn't do your ears any good at all. And in any case, listening to a personal stereo at full blast isn't the best way to win friends and influence people while you're travelling on the bus. Well, you needn't worry anymore about bashing your eardrums or upsetting your neighbours, because this little box of tricks here will really pamper your lug holes. What this is an anti-noise generator, which means it listens to all the nasty noises around and then cancels them out.
Pin back your ears, put on your ear goggles, and listen to New York, Mark. Let's get this out of the way first. What the hell is Howard talking about there? Right? What does pin back your ears and put on your ear goggles mean? Is he talking? Does he think that these anti-noise headphones are ear goggles? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I don't think he knows. Because actually, I think in many ways the worst crime of that sentence is the last third when he says, and listen to New York. As we then cut to a piece about not listening to New York.
Yeah, that's literally the point of the invention.
Yeah. So in fact, you don't want ear goggles, you want ear blinders, Howard.
Oh well, good on.
It makes
Howard.
no sense.
I mean,
Yeah,
it sounded good. I mean, it sounded good if you weren't paying attention to any of the words.
Both you and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, totally, yeah. So, yeah, we've got Kate Bellingham. She's back. She's in Times Square, New York. And this segment is opened with a wonderful bit of... I mean, I don't think you could be racist against New Yorkers, but if it was any other nation on Earth, I think you'd consider it racist the way that they're portrayed, because there's literally two people shouting at each other. There's a cab driver shouting at a construction worker, and a construction worker shouting back. The absolute purest stereotype of New York you could possibly imagine. But they're filmed in close up as well, so presumably
they were asked to.
Yeah, the camera crew asked them to give each other aggro just for the camera.
Yeah, clearly, and they were only too happy to oblige, weren't they? And that kind of made me wonder, because this is 93, and certainly when you saw segments filmed around the world in episodes from earlier in Tomorrow World's run, I mean, noticeably, obviously we had Vancouver when they were there in 1976, and there was Japan. Was that 1990 as well? Yeah. Which definitely would have been exhausting. But I was just wondering, in 1993, how exciting and exotic would it have been to see New York on screen? And I'm thinking not as much as if it had been on in the 80s or 70s, definitely. Where like the idea that they'd flown transatlantic and they're filming there would have been incredibly exciting. And to see kind of bits of America that you, at that point, you wouldn't have envisaged being able to go to. But even by 1993, going to America would have been really quite possible. I mean, we went to America for the first time in 95, not to New York, but to Orlando. And that was exciting. Mm. But I do wonder, it's like all those stereotypes, we're clearly not at the point where New York is so familiar that you don't need to prepare people to see New York. You don't need this kind of cod introduction to remember, these are the stereotypes of Manhattan. They're also not pretending it's as special as it might have been.
No. They both introduce it and end it with a piece of music, which I quite enjoyed, but I was unable to find out what it was. So if anybody knows what that piece of music is, please feel free to email us at tomorrowsworldaudit@gmail.com, because I'd quite like to know what it was.
You'd be really helping us. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's actually quite a good tune.
But
obviously, we can't use it at the end because we don't know what it's called. Well, I suppose we can just pretend we know what it's called. Let's make up a title for it, Russ, by the end of the programme.
All right, yeah. But it's a piece of music very of the time, very 1993. And the piece opens with the title cards are back, aren't they? Giving these segments a text title when it starts up. But in this case, the font actually kind of matches it, because it's got that sort of, I don't know what that font is, but a lot of sort of early 90s music had that font in it. So, it's kind of better than the 96 episode in that it kind of matches what's going on. But yeah, so Kate Bellingham starts off by doing a classic walk and talk down the busy high street in much the same way that Willy Wooly did in the Vancouver episode. I had two observations about this. A, if you're doing a walk and talk down a crowded street, probably better off being taller than Kate Bellingham, because you can't see her for like the first few seconds because she's so short and there's loads of people in front of her, whereas Willy Wooly was easy to spot. And the second thing is that fashion has really taken a nosedive. There are so many badly dressed people on that street compared to the 1970s, in my opinion anyway.
You also spotted that one of the clips of people walking around Manhattan, there is a woman carrying a paint can.
Yes, yeah.
Which I don't know if she was deliberately, I don't know if she was deliberately trying to be like John Travolta, but, she absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, she really did, yeah. Maybe there's just loads of people in New York who are just always walking around down the street with paint cans in their hands. Just
we do have listeners in New York. If they want to email in and tell us if everyone in New York carries a pot of paint around, please do tell. I mean, we've both been there, but I don't think we were on the lookout.
No.
So we'll definitely, next time I go back, I will absolutely be looking out for people carrying pots of paints around.
Definitely, yeah. But yeah, so let's get to the technology.
Yes.
Noise cancelling headphones. I was really surprised that these existed in 1993. I don't know about you.
I think we both were. Yeah.
I think
gobsmacked.
Because I'm kind of very new to the noise cancelling headphone party. I'd heard of them for quite a while, but I'd never actually tried them. And then during lockdown, because I had loads of spare money because I wasn't going out or doing anything, I decided to treat myself to an extremely expensive pair of headphones, and which have very good noise cancelling on them. And I just remember the first time I turned on the noise cancelling function, it absolutely blew my mind. I had no idea that this such a thing was possible.
The magic of the Wookey Hill Witch, Russ.
Yeah.
They would have burned you at the stake.
Yeah, totally. If it wasn't for my rampant tinnitus, I'd feel like I was in a completely silent bubble. And I immediately assumed that, such witchcraft would require huge amounts of processing power. But here's old Kate, and she's got a little box of tricks on her belt that does it all the way back in 1993.
She has a Walkman on her belt, and then next to it she has a Walkman-sized black box in her belt.
Yeah,
like it's not a huge thing. Yeah, I was equally surprised, because this isn't just like a process for cancelling noise. This is how current noise cancelling works.
Yeah.
There's a little microphone in your headphones that picks up the ambient drone that you're trying to block out, and then it produces the opposite noise to cancel it. And I was really surprised, because like you, I it's definitely within the last 10 years that I first came across noise cancelling technology. And I don't know if you did what I did, which is, I think they were probably even my wife's, because she used to travel a lot to and from America. So she invested in a nice pair. And I remember trying them on because I was aware of them, but they always feel like they were incredibly expensive. This is more true like 10 years ago. It's probably not even 10. We haven't been getting over 10 years. It's probably like 7 years ago. And I did that thing where put them on my head, turn them on, you get this kind of warm feeling of like, oh, yeah, I can see how. And then you start making a drone note yourself. And then turning them on and turning them off. Yeah. And it is magic. And that was relatively recent. So, yeah, I was quite surprised to see this. And as you say, like, she's not kind of walking around with, a huge amount of equipment. No. She just has a little thing strapped to it. Now, I'm sure it was experimental. You couldn't buy it. But it's a moderately small device. Bearing in mind how much technology's moved on over the years. Like, it's smaller than a Walkman. Yeah, it's a bit, yeah. But what I mean is, like, it's similar size. It's not like she's got a backpack on and like massive microphones kind of circling around. It's not like that at all.
Yeah. And it's a nice piece of business, this segment, I think, because she gets on an actual bus which appears to have actual passengers on it. None of who react to her presence. So presumably they've been briefed. Yeah. They don't look like they're actors or anything. It looks like it looks like they probably just stood up on that bus and gone, "Okay, everyone, we're filming a thing. Can you not all look at the camera, please?"
And
Cheers.
They do. They're very well behaved.
And they're very well behaved, yeah.
Yeah.
And then what did she say? She gets on the bus and then talks about pampering your lug holes, which I like.
Pampering your lug holes, yeah.
And then she goes and sits in the back of the bus, immediately cuts to a Dutch angle. So that's that box.
You got it. Yeah. Everyone, mark your copybooks.
There's a nice little bit where she explains how sound waves work, and it conjures up a couple of sound waves in the window behind her, which are obviously overlaid on the image, and that would be nice, but they are very flickery.
Strobing,
extremely flickery sound waves.
Yeah.
Not sure why they've done that. It's quite
it's very, very unnecessary because it looks good, except for the fact that it's probably causing seizures.
yeah. And then she gets Steve the sound man.
Yeah, he sounds American, so I reckon he was hired.
Well, I can tell you, I've looked up Steve.
Oh, Russell.
Yeah.
I'll never not be shocked by these, by your willingness not to do any proper work by going down these fabulous rabbit holes.
Yeah, so Steve Anopa, he comes in and they actually demonstrate the technology there and then.
Brilliantly, actually, really well done.
And you can tell that they're actually doing it because you can't really hear what Kate's saying, so it's clear that actually the sound is properly being recorded.
Would you say that there's a Tomorrow's World presenter trying to speak loudly over, trying to speak over loud noises? Russ, I think you are.
I think Tomorrow's World presenter trying to speak over noise-cancelling technology. It's like
That's true, yeah. Oh, no, maybe that doesn't work. Maybe it's the opposite.
So, hang on, Steve Anopa, I think he's from Michigan because he went to Michigan State University, and he's worked on loads of music documentaries. He has one acting credit on IMDb. He played mystery bass player in the 2001 film The Bastards. He now runs a company called Red Planet Films, which also had a beautifully old-fashioned website with loads of broken links on it. But he's worked with the finest artisans in the film and music world, like Jay-Z, Paul Simon, Metallica, James Brown, Jon Stewart, and so many more. And they've worked on over 100 documentaries with subjects ranging from the Lakota tribe in South Dakota, organic farming in New York State, VH1's classic album series, HBO's Autopsy, the BBC's Late Show, and many more. So I guess what's happened here is that although Kate's gone over there, they've then just hired local people, which makes sense. It's something I don't really think about, that they would do that. You assume that the whole Tomorrow's World crew just go mob-handed over to wherever they're
especially going. Thanks to the unique way the BBC is funded. You imagine they're all flying over first class.
Exactly.
En masse. So I was surprised.
Flying over on that toy Concorde. But,
so when he opens his mouth and he speaks and he's clearly American, it's one of those things you get like, of course they'd hire locally. Why wouldn't they? Yeah. He probably has his own, bus ticket and everything, so that's a line item saved, isn't it?
And the fact that he's called Steve and has an uncanny resemblance to Steve Gutenberg is a...
he does look Steve Gutenberg-esque.
It's a lovely little treat.
Cool. Maybe I'll have to make a note and include this in the Instagram and the Twitter feeds, just so people can see. Otherwise, we're just teasing.
How much he looks like the Goot.
The Gootest of all time, as they say, the Goot. But here's the interesting thing. So if the segment had ended there, I think we'd have seen it as like a really interesting segment.
Yes.
But it doesn't end there. It kind of goes off in a bit of an odd tangent when they start talking about how this noise-cancelling technology can be used to save petrol, gas, for the MTA's buses, because they can use it instead of having a muffler or a silencer at the end to keep noise down.
Yes, It's because the silencer stroke muffler causes extra pressure in the engine, which makes the engine slightly less.
That's
less
what
efficient.
it is. Exactly correct. But nonetheless, that won't be necessary anymore, because obviously what they're going to do is they're going to fix. She lifts one up, and it's the kind of size technology I think you might have expected. She lifts this heavy.
It looks kind of like Mjolnir, Thor's.
Oh,
Thor's
hammer. Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
So she lifts it, except bigger. And fair play to Kate Bellingham, who clearly has the kind of qualities of leadership that allows you to lift Thor's hammer. But she lifts it up into the air. And she says, "Here's the new noise cancelling muffler that the MTA are going to roll out." and it's going to save petrol costs. And I don't know, it just seemed like a really mad tangent into, like, I know noise cancelling technology is something that, you know, allows me to enjoy or endure a flight and just, you know, listen when I'm walking, listen to fabulous podcasts like this one as I'm walking to and from work. And yet here was this basically saying, promising that it was going to lower petrol costs. So yeah. I think I said to you, no, can't wait to find out what happens.
Well, I mean, for a start, can you imagine Americans ever doing anything to reduce the amount of petrol they use?
Not then.
There is almost nothing in the world that Americans like doing more than burning fuel. They will take every opportunity to burn as much fuel as they possibly can. So the idea that they would ever adopt any sort of measure to reduce fuel consumption is insane.
It sounds dangerously close to communism, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. That's pure communism. Efficiency is communism. But to be fair, I think maybe there's a possibility that this whole segment was actually inspired by that little bus invention, because I looked this up and it was in 1993. There's a company called NCT Group. They built that device that she holds up, and they started fitting them to New York buses. And they did work. They reduced fuel consumption by a huge 3%, which means presumably the bus was only burning, 2,000 gallons of fuel an hour rather than 2,003 gallons. But the problem is that a bus engine is a big, hot, dirty machine, and this device relies on complicated electronics and is quite a sensitive thing. So the buses just chewed through them like really quickly. And so the Transit Authority just said, well, this is not worth the money we're spending on it. I mean, for a 3% fuel reduction, it's not worth having to replace a $200 sound device every couple of weeks. So they just binned them off. I
did wonder how expensive they must have been. Like, Kate never says how much the item on her belt costs, and partly because I think it's clearly experimental. It's kind of a proof of process. No idea how much it costs, and it's not something you can buy. But equally, she never says how much the huge unit costs either for buses. But I did wonder, it's like, surely the amount they would save in petrol, and petrol wasn't terribly expensive in America. I'm assuming.
No.
The amount that they save in petrol, how much petrol would they have to save to justify the expense of adding this huge noise cancelling thing to the top of the bus? And then the other thing it reminded me of was I saw a piece on the BBC a few months ago, and they were talking about how there's a lot of electrification of the bus fleet here in London. But there's a problem with, obviously, electrical bus fleets and cars in general, which is that they're the opposite. They're quiet.
Yeah, they make no noise.
Are almost silent. Yeah. So, and this was about how they were going to be affixing a box to the front of buses to make a noise so that people can hear them come. So it's almost like we've gone completely, certainly here in London, we had the complete opposite problem.
Yeah.
Is that, we need our buses to be noisy again. Make buses noisy again. There's your vote winner. Yeah, so that just popped into my head. No, it was really curious because I couldn't see how the economics of this made sense.
MBNA. I've got a credit card with MBNA.
Oh!
Did I still for make buses noisy again?
Oh, yeah, I knew you were a Mabna Ice.
But noise cancelling, I'm just going to very briefly give you a history of that. It's actually in the 1950s. There's a man called Dr. Lawrence Jerome Fogel. He worked out this idea that if you've got one sound wave, if you apply a directly opposite sound wave, it will cancel the two things out. But he worked in aviation, and he realised it'd be great for aeroplanes because aeroplanes are really noisy. So he started to develop that. And it was in 1989 that the Bose, famously of expensive speaker fame, they came up with the first ever noise cancelling headphones. It was called the Series 1 Aviation Headset. So they have always been particularly good at cancelling out aircraft noise, which is why they're so good when you go on an airplane. There's something about the constant low frequency hum of an airplane engine that the cancelling speakers are really good at cancelling out. That's where they came from. But so my only other observation about this particular piece is, if we're going to tick off the blatant advertising on the BBC, I came away from this segment absolutely gasping for a Camel cigarette.
We'll talk about that later because I don't agree with you. I know what you mean. It is really interesting because they do film in Times Square and there is advertising everywhere. But it's in the same way that's also true of Piccadilly Circus.
Yeah.
And yeah, equally, I had a real penchant for tuning into CNN to find out about President Clinton's latest tax cut plan because they zoom in on that, don't they?
They do,
And actually, what was surprising was I was hoping because Camel obviously really is, I don't know, is anachronistic the right word? But like it's there's no Camel advertisement anywhere in New York now, I assume, just like there isn't in Britain.
They banned,
you're not allowed to advertise.
They banned advertising.
That's what I mean, yeah.
1997.
That was relatively early, wasn't it? Yeah, so just like here, it's just like, but so I was kind of preparing to pin back my eye holes, put on my eye goggles, and keenly going to look out to see what other kind of dead brands they were advertising, and sadly that's about it really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it did remind me that they advertised Suntory whiskey at one point. I can see it there on our freeze frame. And the first time I didn't realize that was a real brand. The first time I ever came across Suntory whiskey was Lost in Translation, when Bill Murray goes to Japan to advertise it, and I thought it was like a completely made up brand. So it's until not long after that, that's advertised, and I don't think there's many whiskey adverts, and it's all basically Sony products and film.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, I've never smoked fags, but I've always quite enjoyed cigarette adverts. They were always quite creative.
Same with alcohol, because they had strict rules, so they had to be really creative.
Yeah. 80s beer adverts were always the best adverts.
The famous bear, the Hofmeister bear. You look at those ads now, it's absolutely ridiculous. And the idea that kids wouldn't love that ad is just nonsense. And obviously it really isn't designed. They're really not trying to get kids hooked on beer. Oh, and all the Carling ones, all the Carling Black Labels ones, like the German soldier saving the dam buster bombs.
Amazing. Yeah.
That's a fabulous one. Yeah. So we'll talk about advertising later on, but I'm inclined to say no, and I'm the one with the special Apple pen that ticks the box for us. So
Speaking of ticking boxes.
Now, there is one cancer which is entirely preventable, yet every year over 1,500 women in Britain die from it. It's cervical cancer. Preventing it depends on early screening by smear test, but unfortunately, many women don't go for screening. And recent cases of poorly done smears and results being lost have raised a lot of worries. In fact, the smear test is very reliable, but it takes skill to do it properly and considerable expertise to analyse the smear under a microscope to spot the cell changes that may lead to cancer. All this takes time, so women have to wait several weeks to get their results. At a London hospital this week, a new system for screening cervical cancer is being tested. The technique, which has already been on trial in Australia, has been developed to give instant results.
Let me tell you what I'm going to do this afternoon. We're going to use this new pencil probe on the neck of the wound to see if there's anything abnormal there. I've mentioned it to you beforehand, but this is actually it.
So much like the episode we watched in 1984, here's Judith Hann doing another really good bit of public service broadcasting.
Absolutely knocking it out of the park, Mark.
Yeah, brilliant.
I don't know about you, but I've certainly never had a smear test myself.
I'm afraid.
But she's so reassuring. She kind of made me want to go and have one. You know what I mean? Like...
Which, to be fair, is, yeah. I almost kind of know what you mean, Russ. You're not wrong. It's like that level of assurance and just the matter-of-fact way she talks about something that, as you rightly said in our notes, it's like there would have been a lot of people very unhappy and uncomfortable with the idea of smear tests being talked about on TV in 1996. Idiots, a lot of them, obviously. Well, mostly men, I've no doubt. There are probably plenty of women as well. And here she is. Go on.
I was just saying, I think there's two things at work there. I think there is a weird thing where men are scared of anything to do with menstruation or women's reproductive systems, which I've never understood, but it definitely exists. Like any woman starts talking about her periods or anything like that, men clam up and like act like it's this terrifying thing, and because of that, women are reluctant to talk about it. I think it's ridiculous.
Shamed, I think, into not talking about it. Yeah.
And then secondarily, I think that it is probably the worst branded test ever. There's something about the word smear that just doesn't sound pleasant, does it? It just
No.
So I think
it doesn't sound reassuring.
No.
No, and obviously this is the view of two cis white heteronormative men. So we're really adding to the level of expertise and understanding. And obviously we're not going to be too flippant about this because it not only is it a serious subject, but actually it's very seriously dealt with and very responsibly dealt with. And there's not really a lot to kind of laugh about or slag off. Though I do also agree with you about the naming, and it's interesting because when I was looking it up, I'm not I wasn't doing your work for you or anything like that, but when I was looking up,
you just recreationally looking it up.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, no, it was more like I wanted to. Like I know I was taught what it was, but I wanted to kind of remind myself, and it was what I vaguely remember. But it's interesting. A lot of the NHS websites now they refer to it as cervical screening.
Yeah,
and the name smear test it's used lower down because it's obviously in the popular vernacular. But I thought actually, do you know what? Cervical screening is a much better choice of phrase. It's a much easier sales pitch, and it reminded me. Also medically, but it's like when I turned 40 last year, I got a phone call from my GP's office that week. And they were saying, "Oh, hello, Mr. Agnew. Now that you're between the ages of 40 and 70, we'd like you to come in for a checkup." And I immediately said, "Oh, no, absolutely not. No, good, thanks. No, I'm all healthy." And I realised it was because I had literally just turned 40, and now I was basically being told I'm 70.
Yeah.
But I did say to JC, he's like, well, if they call again, I will do it because obviously it's the right thing to do. And then this year they called. They said, "Oh, hello, Mr. Agnew. We'll invite you in to have one of our over 40s checkups." And I thought, "Oh, yes, I'll see you there." It's like, yes, you have improved your sales pitch.
Yeah, we're going to measure you up for a Zimmer frame.
It's like basically they were shuffling me out the door, like my vibrant years are behind me, and it just dawned on me. It's like, especially with stuff like health, and especially as a man, you have to be careful about how you put things. Not because you have to dance around men's vulnerability, but it's more of a case of like smarter word choices. Like an over 40s checkup as opposed to 40 to 70-year-old checkup. You're gonna get a lot more people go like, "Oh yeah, you can really sell it." I think that's just a public health thing in general, which is one of the interesting things about the last year and a half is how I think people now are much more aware of public health as the role you can play in public health, and actually how we all individually have a role to play in public health. So 1993. Clearly an important piece. They dress it up with this new experimental technique, but really I think the reason they're doing this, and you can almost feel Hann's hand on this, is the message at the end. And she talks about how actually the real issue here isn't the test or the new test, it's that people aren't getting it, and that this is a screening technique to find out who's vulnerable to it. It's like, go out, get your appointment, try to do it every 3 years. Myself, I've made this error, so I'm going to be getting an appointment for next week. That's the real message that she's trying to deliver, and she does it really elegantly.
There's this real sense that what the people are targeting are people who maybe have never had one of these smear tests, and they're kind of showing what it's like to go and have one done, and the way they portray it is, it seems perfectly, what they're doing is okay, and then they sort of show you on the screen what's happening.
Yeah.
So the device itself, which, spoiler alert, doesn't appear to exist.
Yeah. Oh, at all.
I couldn't find it at all. That's almost secondary to the idea of introducing the viewer to what a smear test actually involves, I think, which is great because it's hugely important.
Knowledge is power.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So once again, Hann swoops in and saves the lives of millions of people.
You're probably not wrong. I bet you there's people who watch this who picked up the phone that week and thought, "Oh, do you know what? I am overdue." Did it and benefited from having done that.
Yeah.
Maybe not millions of people, but one or two is enough to kind of warrant this kind of broadcast, isn't it? Just to kind of, you've changed lives for the better. Let's move on. Much to the relief, I'm sure, of most of the audience here waiting for us to make a horrific clangor.
Absolutely not, no, Mark. I'm going to tell you about smear tests.
But I was about to say, but first, before we do, I want to know what happened next.
Okay, bearing in mind that most of our listeners are probably men. I'm making the assumption. I don't know, but yeah. I think one of the few things that we can't get from the stats is the sex of our listeners.
The gender, I think, is the correct phrase. Yeah.
But I'm gonna throw out the idea that probably most of them are men. I'm going to tell you what a smear test is. So, actually, I'm going to tell you what cervix is for a start.
Oh, that's a good start, yeah.
So the cervix is the lower part of the uterus. And it's basically the bouncer of the female reproductive system. It acts as a barrier between the uterus and the vagina. So it will let some of the good sperm through for fertilization. It'll kick some of the others out. But then it only really opens up when a baby's being born, and that's the idea of how many centimeters are you dilated. The thing that's dilated is the cervix. The problem is that the cervix is liable to getting cervical cancer. But the weird thing about cervical cancer, and it makes it very unusual compared to any other cancers, is that it essentially behaves like a sexually transmitted disease. And they noticed this long ago, and they couldn't work out why. Because what they noticed is like a century ago, they noticed that the people who got cervical cancer were mainly prostitutes. And then they noticed that nuns almost never got it. And then they noticed that the second wives of men whose first wives had died of cervical cancer would also more likely get cervical cancer. So essentially it was acting like a sexually transmitted disease, but they knew it was cancer and they couldn't work out why. And it was only quite late, I think it was in the 80s, they identified that there's a virus, HPV, human papillovirus, I think it's called. They noticed that that is what's causing cancer. And over 90% of all cervical cancer cases are caused by this HPV virus. So that's what they're concentrating on. They're trying to eradicate that. But they luckily, in 2006, they came up with a vaccine for it. And the World Health Organization is basically trying to eradicate it by vaccinating everyone against HPV in the world. So that's their plan. They reckon they can probably eliminate cervical cancer by 2050 if they follow their program. The other thing is that there was two people that came up with the idea for the smear test, but they came up with it independently. It was one of those things that was invented independently by two different people, and then one person got the glory. So there's a bloke called Georgios Papanicolaou, I think. Georgios Papanicolaou? Sounds about right.
That's good. That's solid.
And then there was another person who I know, this is a Romanian person, I really don't know how to pronounce his name, but if I read it out, it sounds like it's Oral Babes, which I don't think it is, because that would be weird. They both separately came up with the test, and Papanicolaou is why, in America, the smear test is called a pap smear.
Pap smear? Oh, yes. Is that why?
Yeah. But he was denied the Nobel Prize, although it was such an important discovery, but he was denied the Nobel Prize because it turned out he'd nicked a load of research from Oral Babes. So, but then when I read pap smear, I went, why does pap smear have such a conjure up something in my brain? Resonance in my brain. Yeah. And I remembered that one of the baddies in The Naked Gun is called pap smear.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I might actually. I'm going to play a clip from it now.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
Dominique, service for two, please.
I must kill Pap Smear. Will that be with cream and sugar, sir?
That's sending very mixed public health messages, isn't it?
So that's a joke that they've done that I never got at the time. But the good news is that this device, I could not find anything about this device, but this device is essentially rendered meaningless anyway because genetics has moved on so much since this program was made that they can use DNA testing now. So they can like track the DNA of the virus. So although smear testing still goes on these days, it is likely that it will be phased out in favour of essentially they just test for the DNA of the virus and they can find it in that way. So that's the future of it. Unfortunately, I tried to track down Judith Hann's medical records to see whether she genuinely did have a smear test the next week. Couldn't find those. Turns out that they're not available.
To be fair, she was only... She was promising to get it next week, wasn't she? She wasn't even promising to ring up next week. Yeah. Well, we know that next week's edition of Tomorrow's World is a Christmas special, so maybe she tells us all then.
Oh, yeah. That'd be a nice little surprise. Secret Santa.
Copenhagen
Copenhagen is the capital of Denmark. It's a great city, but in one way it's cut off from the rest of the world. It's on an island called Zealand, and at the moment, the only way to get from the capital to the rest of the country is by ferry. But building a bridge across Storebælt, the 18 kilometres of water that separates Zealand from the rest of Denmark, is not as straightforward as it sounds. It's the main channel from the North Sea into the enclosed Baltic. The incoming salty water is vital to the delicate balance of the whole of the Baltic Sea. That mixing occurs right here. There was real concern that anything that was built across the Storebælt which impeded the flow in any way would alter the fragile ecosystem in the Baltic. So when the Danish Parliament gave the go-ahead, they stipulated that the Finnish bridge must have no effect on the Baltic Sea. This has become known as the zero-impact solution. Together with the Danish Hydraulic Institute, the bridge builders had to work out just what having zero impact actually meant. How would they measure it? And how would they prove that they'd achieved it to the satisfaction of a panel of international experts?
I think that's the first time we've had a professional golfing champion present a segment for us, isn't it?
Yes, she's straight off Augusta, having won the US Masters, and she's showing off down the mean streets of Copenhagen in her brand new green jacket. It's quite astonishing, isn't it? When I sent you that link, you did not believe me, I think, until you clicked on it.
I mean, it's a very of-the-time outfit, but it's exactly the same as golfing.
It's exactly the same. It's just missing the crest.
Yeah.
The Alan Partridge-style crest on the jacket.
But this is Carmen Price. It's the first time we've had Carmen Price on here.
Mm.
One of those presenters who, as soon as I saw her, I recognised her, but I would, if I'd not watched this and asked me to write down a list of Tomorrow's World presenters, I would never have remembered she was a presenter at all. But I tried to find out stuff about her. She's one of those ones where there's not a great deal about her on the internet, which I'm sure to the relief of all our listeners.
She's delighted. I'm sure she's delighted. Yeah.
One notable thing is that she's married to Saul Nassay, who in previous episodes I've talked about him. During this period, he's just a writer for the programme, but he ends up becoming a producer. Then he becomes the editor of Tomorrow's World in 1997. So he's the editor of the Philippa Forrester years. So yeah, they're a sort of Tomorrow's World power couple. So she's not done very much TV apart from Tomorrow's World. The only other thing that she ever did was, do you remember the Saturday morning TV show Get Fresh?
Yes.
With Gilbert the Alien.
I do remember that,
Which I one of my favourites of the Saturday morning programmes, I reckon. Because Gilbert the Alien obviously was voiced by Phil Cornwell.
Yeah.
So always a good watch. She did a segment on that called Get Sweaty. She did a fitness segment.
Oh, that
which
I
couldn't find any film of or anything, unfortunately. But I did find film of Gilbert the Alien winding up Bros, which is well worth looking up on YouTube if you get it. At one point, he makes Luke Goss get in a bath, fully clothed, which I'm sure there's a bit in the Bros documentary where he talks about being in the bath. I don't know whether Gilbert the Alien had given him some sort of
complex.
Yeah. But yeah, no, these days she just works for Cambridge University, I think. And that's about it, really, about her. Also, and then one more thing.
Mm.
I think the reason that she got the job doing the fitness segment on Get Fresh is because she won the British Athletics Southern League Division shot put in 1985. So she must have been some sort of junior athlete, I think.
Fair play. Yeah.
So that's how she got that.
And obviously she's great at golf as well, as we know.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, putter, shot putter. I mean, the clues in
Russ,
the name.
This just writes itself.
She must be absolutely blazed through those greens. But yeah, anyway, so this segment, it turns out that during this period of Tomorrow's World, the way they open segments in foreign countries is that they give you a brief shot of the most sort of stereotypical things they think the country's associated with. So we had the New York thing where there was people shouting at each other. This Denmark
in here.
Yeah, this Denmark bit opens with some boats, a beautiful barmaid pouring a pint of Carlsberg.
Yeah,
people sit around.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, and a bloke riding a bike with Dutch flags all over. Not Dutch, sorry, Danish flags all over it.
Literally, the only thing we're missing is somebody making Lego, something or another. That's it. That's the only thing missing.
Yeah. But
or Peter Schmeichel in the background. That's it. Peter Schmeichel in the background constructing Lego for his son Casper. That's all we're missing.
But I don't know why this is. They play this extraordinarily cheesy bit of saxophone music over the top of it.
Yeah.
And we've looked it up. It's not like he's a Danish saxophonist. So I don't know what the association is there.
It's so weird. It's such an odd choice. It's so bizarre because it just doesn't really fit. Doesn't really work. And yet, the more I listen to the song, I don't know, the more obsessed with it I become. It's. Can I just say? I know you normally. It's called Cruising. It's by Ron Asprey, and it comes from his highly celebrated, iconic The Sax album.
Yeah.
And how many tracks are on that album? 40. So you know it's good.
Yes. Can I very quickly give you a couple more Ron Asprey facts?
Yes, please. Very much so.
Because fact number 3 is going to blow your mind. So
let me swallow my tea first.
So he was in a band called Back Door, which was formed in 1971, right? He sadly died in 2003. But I read his obituary, and he was taught to play the saxophone by a man called Jimmy Carr, but not that one.
Oh,
yeah. But this is the thing. So I said he sadly died in 2003. Do you know what date he died in 2003?
Was it the 10th of December?
Yes.
No way.
Yes. So he died exactly to the day 10 years after this episode was broadcast.
Oh, that's creepy, isn't it?
Isn't that weird?
That is so weird, yeah. The curse of tomorrow's world. We've never come across this.
Yeah. And he's only 50. He's only 57.
Oh, that's no age.
That is no age.
That's no age, is it? Wow, that's astonishing.
Then you think, well, so this incongruous music, it suddenly makes sense if it's some sort of curse that they're casting on the poor man.
Because let's be honest, that is the only way it makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow, that's astonishing. Oh, wow, great fact. I mean, not for his family or him, but, for us and the listeners.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's creepy. I don't like that.
No.
Because the song is so odd. It has nothing to do with Denmark or bridges. I mean, I expect it to be called, Bridging by Ron Asprey, but it's not. Yeah. The only thing I thought was, it is cruising, and they do talk about boats, but that seemed a bit of a least. There's plenty of other songs they could have picked if they're going to be that tenuous.
Yeah. I mean, Bridge Over Troubled Water would be the most obvious
one. Yeah. Actually, that would have been annoyingly spot on.
Yeah, that's sort of like Homes Under the Hammer spot on, isn't it?
Yeah. Leave that to the experts, okay?
Yeah. Anyway, so this segment, it's about a bridge. So Denmark is made up of a few different islands, and it's next to Sweden, and they, at this time, the only way to get between the two bits is via ferry. So they've got the idea of building a bridge between the different little islands there, in order to massively reduce transport times. But because the Danish government actually care about things, they've imposed this idea of what's it called, the zero impact solution,
zero impact approach.
So whatever it gets built, they need to ensure that it doesn't affect the fishing grounds or any of the wildlife and things like that.
The area is what it is because of the way waters mix, and so the bridge can't interfere with that process.
Yeah, and that's basically what the segment is about. It's I think it's probably the simplest and most straightforward segment of the episode.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
I think again a bit like the noise cancelling. It's like that kind of approach and that kind of understanding of environmental impact. Obviously, it was happening at the time, but still feels quite progressive. So it's kind of surprising to hear the Danish government are probably much more progressive than ours anyway. I mean, you can imagine John Major's government in 1993. I mean, God, they were doing the Newbury bypass, weren't they? And stuff like that, But it's strange. It's really progressive. So it's actually really interesting to see a government of the day putting its money where its mouth is. I mean, this whole zero impact approach adds 150 million, did you say dollars? Or pounds, 150 million pounds onto the cost of the bridge, which I'm assuming the bridge was not cheap, but 150 million is a decent wedge of money, especially if you're the size of Denmark. Yeah, it's interesting. It's not terribly mind blowing, but it's an interesting process where they just explain what they've done. I'm sure it's probably quite informative at the time.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like around that time, there were some nice engineering projects going on. It's like the Channel Tunnel, wasn't it? They things like that. Sort of like positive, forward-thinking engineering projects that seem to actually be going well rather than...
And in both the cases of the Channel Tunnel and the bridge, literally bringing people closer together.
Yeah.
We're not putting up walls, we're building bridges and tunnels, yeah. And as you say, going well.
Yeah. So I can tell you, Mark, that it's called the Great Belt Fixed Link these days. I don't know whether that's what you called it then. And it does indeed, it was indeed finished, it exists. There's two parts to it. So there's the part that she was talking about, which is a suspension bridge for cars. And then underneath it, there's a tunnel for trains. And then it goes to that island called, she pronounces it Sproy. If it's written down, it says Sprogo. So I guess Danish people pronounce G-O as
Sproy.
Y. But then the secondary bit is a box girder bridge, which carries both the trains and the cars at the same time. When it opens, it was completed, when was it completed? 1997. When it opened, it was the second longest suspension bridge in the world, and it's now the fifth longest suspension bridge in the world, because Asia... They've been building a lot of them recently. But it's still the largest construction project in Danish history. Before it was built, if you wanted to get between those two places, it would take you 90 minutes because you have to wait for the ferry, get on the ferry take you across, then wait for another ferry, like that. So 90 minutes take you to get across those two bits. It now takes 10 minutes. However, Mark, have you ever been across the Dartford Bridge?
I have, yeah.
How much does that cost these days? Is it 3 quid, 4 quid, 5 quid?
I was going to say 3 or 4 quid, it would be my guess.
Have a guess how much it costs to go across this bridge.
Well, I have to go one of two ways. It's either like 45 quid, which is a bargain, because everything in Denmark is expensive, or it's free. It is. And I assume free.
It's 35 quid to drive a car across it.
No way! Yeah. That was my jokey exaggeration. But it's been up and running for 23 years, and they're still charging. There's no way they haven't paid it off. That's just pure racketeering.
Someone's creaming in. Yeah, absolutely.
Unbelievable. 35 quid.
Yeah. However, as this segment is about the environmental impacts mainly, they did a survey after it was completed, and the conclusion was that this really did indeed have zero impact. Everything now is absolutely back to as it was. It's as if the bridge isn't even there. So it worked.
That's very impressive.
Worked a treat.
Yeah, very impressive.
Great success.
That and the sheer amount of gravy that pours off that bridge every day into the Danish government's coffers. Well, they're laughing, aren't they? Also, can I just shout out, it's always great when you realise that there is a real place in the world called Zealand.
Yes, yeah. Oh, that's why
Yeah.
they call it New Zealand, because there isn't actually a Zealand.
Yeah, there is a real Zealand, yeah.
Also, Denmark, is that the only country in the world with your name in it?
Oh, quite possibly.
Yeah. I mean, I've got Russia.
Yeah. Yes, you do.
Right, next one.
Next.
Hubble, Toil and Trouble.
Toil and Trouble.
Well, you've seen the pictures, you've heard the story. This week's mission to repair the Hubble Space Telescope is already being called a resounding success. But is this a triumph for science and human achievement, or just for NASA's PR? The Space Telescope was supposed to give the clearest pictures of the universe ever, but the advantage it had by being above the Earth's hazy atmosphere was lost because of the biggest blunder in the history of astronomy. In fact, the main mirror, which focuses the starlight, was too flat by just 0.002 of a millimetre. To you and me, that's 1/50th the thickness of a human hair. But to an astronomer, it's an enormous error. As a result, the Space Telescope is short-sighted. Now, it happened through a combination of incompetence and cost-cutting. The mirror's curve was polished using a machine that was badly adjusted. And then to save money, the same machine was used to test the mirror, so the fault wasn't detected. And because military technology was being used, the whole operation was top secret. Astronomers could only test the mirror once it was up in space. Well, 3 years on, and that's the area the shuttle astronauts were sent up to fix. But beyond fitting extra mirrors to cure Hubble's short-sightedness, their list of repairs grew to deal with other troubles plaguing the telescope. And that's how the week began.
I absolutely love the Hubble Space Telescope. I think of the big space missions of my childhood that I remember, Hubble was always the big one. The one that inspired the imagination the most. There's a natural drama to it in that it was built up with such, everyone thought it was going to be great, and then they put it up there, and it became a laughing stock because it went wrong, and then NASA just pulled together and went, no, we're going to fix it, and they went up and fixed it, and it's shown us some of the greatest things we've ever seen in the universe. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it really is. I like you, growing up, was incredibly excited about Hubble and everything it promised. You know, I mean, what kid isn't normally excited about dinosaurs and then they move on to space? Because it's just so full of excitement and promise. And every generation they look up, you can always imagine what might be in a way that I don't think you can when you're looking down on the ground. And yeah, when it didn't work, I felt so kind of personally let down because of all that excitement had been misplaced. And then when you find out that it didn't work because of like really stupid errors, this was a real problem, not just because like they invested all that money into Hubble and, you know, it wasn't going to deliver on its promises, but like this is only a handful of years after Challenger. When, you know, NASA really needed to, well, this just looked like, you know, it's like, at one point Howard says like basically the future of space exploration and NASA's was on the line. And when I first heard it, I thought it sounded a bit hyperbolic, not least because obviously we know that one of the greatest missions NASA ever did was repairing the Hubble Space Telescope. Because as you're right, like once this picture started coming in, it was everything that you hoped it would be. And there are so many iconic photos, you know, reaching back, was this cradle of universes and, you know, that incredible column where stars are born that, you know, I'm not doing it justice, but like I'm sure everyone's seen and is remarkable. Then I remember that actually this was a handful of years after Challenger. And yeah, he's probably right. Absolutely. The future of NASA was up for grabs, not least because like $3 billion is a huge amount of money in 1990. It's not a small amount of money now, but back then it was a huge amount of money to waste, which is kind of what they did, except that obviously, you know, look, you know, spoiler, it does come good in the end. No, it's a remarkable bit of kit. And in many ways, I do wonder if it is more remarkable and more celebrated because they had to repair it. And they did repair it.
Yeah, maybe it's sort of like a hero's journey, isn't it? Like,
yeah, absolutely. That, you know, the little engine that could.
Yeah.
As a result, like I've got a warmer feeling towards it than I would have done had it just worked.
And just the word Hubble is nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hubble.
Yeah, it's good to say.
I bet Rowan Atkinson can say the word Hubble really nicely.
A bibble.
Hubble. Yeah, this segment is basically them just explaining how they fixed it. So
what went wrong and how they fixed it.
Yeah. There's a lovely bit where the tension is that a bloke can't close a door, and then Mr. Goodall just tell him to slam it. So he does. Yeah. In his face,
and it works.
Yeah. But and also some absolutely outrageous space fly tipping as well, which we know, from previous episodes, you don't want to do. But they just rip that solar panel off and just bin it off into space.
They do. Yeah, they bin it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well.
It was like that when I got here. We get to see a couple of the scientists involved. There's a British scientist, and then there's a Italian scientist who admits that if he was able to, he would have killed someone when he found out that the mirror on the Hubble wasn't working properly.
And the delivery of that line means that, and the way, like, you know, clearly he still feels emotions all these years later. Yeah, I believe him. I believe him that he 100%.
He could clearly kill a man if he wanted to, or at least get them killed. Yeah, so it's basically an explanation of what went wrong, which I will go into in a minute, because, no surprises, you know, I love space stuff. When I was doing my research last night, I started reading about the Hubble Space Telescope and then looked at the clock and realised I've been reading about the Hubble Space Telescope for about 5 hours. So I'm an absolute expert on it these days.
Well, let's hope our oil rig needs a Hubble Space Telescope attached to it, Russ.
This part of the segment is ended with Howard doing quite a flash manoeuvre of pulling out a mobile phone.
Mm-hmm.
And phoning
from his jacket.
Yes, from his jacket, and phoning Duccio, the suspected murderer.
Yeah,
phoning him up to have a chat with him.
Yep.
Now, I don't know about you. I'm not sure that he is genuinely phoning him up. What do you reckon?
I not for 1 second do I buy that he is speaking to him on that mobile phone.
No,
not for 1 second. What a weird little bit of unnecessary theatre. It's a lie. Let's call it what it is, Russ. It's a flat-out lie that he's on that phone. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons is because, you know, it's not plugged into anything. You'd expect a wire to trail from it, or like a microphone to be attached, because that would have been quite fun. Utter nonsense. I don't know. I admire it. I thought I'd be really angry.
No, no.
He looks like such a yuppie, though.
He does, doesn't
Howard.
he? Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. He's just... If only he had thumbed through his file effects to get Duccio's number first.
I didn't think about this when I first saw it on the programme, but it was only like after this segment, I thought, hang on a minute, they've got a presumably full-size replica of the Hubble Space Telescope in the studio. But
if it's not full size, then it's half size. It's gigantic.
But at no point is it ever acknowledged that it's there.
No,
it's looming in the background almost constantly, and it's a very impressive model.
Yeah, it's hugely impressive.
Have the BBC props department been made to make this? Is it literally just Baco foil around a giant toilet roll tube?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, what's going on
squeezy washing up liquid bottle at the end.
Why at no point do they point to it or use it to illustrate things?
I assume that's what they were going to do. I almost imagined at one point him kind of climbing a ladder to point at the sections that the astronauts in their spacewalk were tackling. And no, absolutely not. Yeah. It's just it actually goes unremarked upon entirely. Like he never once mentions it or looks at it when he says Hubble. He almost he doesn't even look up at it. It's like it's almost like, are we the only ones that can see this? Do they? Does Howard not know it's there?
It's like the snuffleupagus of
Space or Harvey. Yeah. I mean, because actually, at one of the opening shots, it's Howard standing in front of it from a distance, and it almost looks like he doesn't know that the Hubble Space Telescope is zooming in to see if he has a tonsure or something like that.
Yeah, it's a real weird one.
Yeah.
Shall I tell you about the old Hubble Telescope? I'll try and keep this brief, but I have got a lot of notes. It's named after Edwin Hubble, unsurprisingly. He's a very important astronomer, and he was the person that... when you look into the sky and you see... They used to think that they were dust clouds, and he was the person who said, no, they're not dust clouds, they're other galaxies. They're actually, that's not dust, those are stars. It's just they're so far away it looks like dust. And he also was the person that proved that the universe is expanding. So that's why I named it after him. But he was a very gifted athlete in his college years, and he led the University of Chicago to win the college basketball championship. And because of this, the last servicing mission of the Hubble Space Telescope, they took his winning basketball up into space and photographed it. I always love it when astronauts take pointless shit up into space.
Well, I was about to say, but surely they could have used the telescope to photograph it from space when it's on the ground.
They'd have to turn it round, though, wouldn't they? I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
So it was originally launched in 1990, but they came up with the concept in 1970. So they'd thought about having orbiting telescopes before. So there was a couple of orbiting telescopes, one of which was British. So the third country to ever launch anything into space was Britain, which I didn't realise. And it was a orbiting telescope. It was called the Ariel 1, and they sent it into orbit in 1962. The problem was that a couple of months later, the Americans set off a nuclear bomb in space. And it completely wiped it out, made it useless.
Okay.
But subsequent to that, they realised that it's a great idea to have a telescope in space because there's no interference. You don't get the atmospheric interference because stars don't actually twinkle. The only reason they twinkle to us is because of the atmosphere causing problems, things like that. So in 1970, we need a telescope in space. They went to the Congress, and Congress said, this is far too expensive. We're not going to sign it off. So there's lots of toing and froing and arguments and things like that. And then the European Space Agency said, we'll chip in 15% if we can have a look through it as well. And then they went, okay, brilliant. So they signed it off in 1978. So in 1978, they started designing it, and it took them ages to work out all of the various problems and things like that, what they needed to do. So it got launched in 1990. And then once it went up, they switched it on, and everyone looked at it, and it was blurry.
Mm-hmm.
And why was it blurry? The reason it was blurry, as Howard quite adequately explains in this, is because they asked there was a company called Perkin-Elmer, who were still going. They should have closed down immediately afterwards, if you ask me. But Perkin-Elmer were contracted to make the lens. It's basically just a giant mirror. But the lens has to be unbelievably accurate. The intended design was to make it so that it was accurate to 1/65th the wavelength of light, which I don't know what the wavelength of light is, but it sounds pretty impressive, doesn't it? And NASA didn't really trust them because they said, well, we've got this new computer-controlled technology and it will make it perfect. And NASA went, okay, well, you do that, And then on the side, they got Kodak to make a separate one, which was just done using traditional methods, which is essentially they just polish a big bit of metal. But it takes so long to polish things. They started polishing it in 1979, and it took them until 1981 before it was finished. So they were constantly polishing this bit of metal for 2 solid years.
Jeez Louise.
To construct it. But as Howard says, the problem is that this Perkin-Elmer company, they had devices that were meant to detect any imperfections in the mirror, but they made a custom-made device to check it, and they built the device that checks it wrong. So it had an inbuilt fault, so it couldn't detect the faults that it needed to detect. And even though they ran their normal checking devices over it, and the normal checking devices said, oh, there's something wrong with this, they ignored them because they thought the new one was better so they should listen to that, even though they built it wrong. And apparently, like NASA and Perkin-Elmer didn't get on very well, and there was loads of people going, these people are a bunch of amateurs, this is going to go wrong. But they still ignored it. So they sent it up, and then once it was up there and they discovered the problem, they couldn't bring it back down, and it was too expensive to send the spare one, the Kodak one, which actually did work. It was too expensive to send that up because it's a big old heavy thing. So they sat there in 1990. They went, oh God, what are we going to do? And then somebody went, hang on a minute, we know exactly what the problem is. So all we need to do is just make a pair of glasses for it. So that's what they did. They basically made a giant, monocle, because it's a telescope. They made a giant monocle for it with a corrective lens that corrected the problem. So the problem was the edge of the lens was too flat by 1/450th of a millimetre. And that was what was causing the problem. So they essentially just built an extra little pair of glasses to put on it that corrected that little defect, sent that up, and this is the mission that they're talking about on this bit here. And it was led by a man called Story Musgrave, who is now 86 years old. So this means he was 58 when he did this spacewalk, and he's the only astronaut to ever fly all 5 space shuttles.
Oh,
so yeah, bit of astronaut legend. I'd never heard him before. Apparently he. He had a stalker in the 90s. It was a woman who had previously stalked David Letterman, but had got David Letterman got a restraining order against her. So she started stalking this astronaut instead.
Wow.
But yeah, they put this pair of glasses on the telescope, and immediately it worked perfectly. Everyone loved NASA again. The rest is history. And it really is. It's such an important piece of equipment. They've used it to work out the exact age of the universe. They've worked out that black holes exist at the centre of galaxies. They've found new moons and things like that. They've weighed the Milky Way. Apparently the Milky Way weighs 1.5 trillion times the weight of the sun. So there you go.
Wow. And yet it still proclaims to not fill you up between meals.
Exactly, yeah. It's lived longer than they expected it to, because they built it so that it could be serviced, but now there's no space shuttles. They can't go up and service it anymore. It's living longer than they expected it to. The future is kind of in the balance at the moment, because our old mate Elon Musk has offered to send up a SpaceX thing to repair it, because it needs repair every so often. But yeah, they're not sure whether they're going to keep it going or not. So hopefully they do, because it's been good to us.
No, I was going to say, hopefully they do, but it's like, but if they don't, hopefully they don't just let it drift off. Like it should be.
Well, the original plan was that they would bring it back down and then show it in the Smithsonian, but they can't because they haven't got any space shuttles anymore, and it was designed to fit inside a space shuttle. Yeah. So they probably will end up just burning it, but they can't. But the lens is so large and heavy that won't burn up.
It won't break up.
No.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a danger. But Mark, there is one last thing I'm going to tell you about the Hubble, and this is almost like telling somebody that Father Christmas doesn't exist. Those pictures, Mark.
Yeah.
They're not. They're not real. They're not real.
I know. Yeah, I know they're not real. Yeah.
They're not real. Hubble only takes black and white photographs. Actually, its cameras are only 0.64 megapixels. It's got 4 0.64 megapixels. They're black and white, but they know what wavelengths of light they're taking.
Yeah.
However, NASA don't just go, okay, convert the red camera to red. They don't do the Technicolor thing. They add extra stuff. So they go, there's some ultraviolet there. let's make that green. They add loads of things in, make the pictures prettier. And NASA are really cagey about this. They hate people talking about it. So if you go online, so you go, are those pictures real? There's loads of articles saying, well, no, they're not real. However, that doesn't matter because they're important, because like there's real sort of like defensiveness about the fact. And you think, okay, well, fair enough. But I just want to see what these things actually look like. If I was there in a spaceship, what would they look like to my eyes? And it seems like they don't understand that. They seem to, we need to show what the other elements of the image are. I don't care. I want to see what it actually looks like with the eyes. And I think apparently, because hydrogen is only either red or blue, basically all of them would either be some mixture of red and blue. So if you ever see green or yellow in these or orange in these images, it's because it's been made up by somebody on Photoshop. But I think maybe it's because it was such a PR disaster at the beginning of the 90s that they feel the need to always make sure that everyone thinks Hubble is the greatest thing ever. So they make these beautiful pictures and then are really defensive about the fact that they're not actually real. I don't know.
No, I was definitely aware that they were not real is probably not the phrase I would have used, but improved would be that, like that they're kind of zhuzhies up for kind of public consumption. Not that much I knew, but I agree with you. Like, wouldn't it be great to see what the actual, if you were doing a quick flyby, what would it actually look like? And even if it's not as pretty or as amazing or as all-inspiring, I think there's a legitimacy to that question. It seems a bit of a shame. I do wonder, what do actual space scientists get from Hubble?
Well, actually, that was an interesting thing. Literally anyone, can apply to book time on the Hubble. I mean, we could do it if we wanted to. But you just have to submit a
request, a paper,
like a request, and go, I want to look at this. And then they look through them and they go, oh, this one actually is worth it. Here you go. And they do little 45-minute blocks of time, and you get little 45 minutes. And you can look through the Hubble, whatever you need to look at.
Which
is nice, I thought.
Yeah. Do you think having a podcast is a good enough reason to?
I would look through Philippa Forrester's bathroom window.
I was thinking, actually, wouldn't it be... I'd quite like to look at the moon and see if you can see, like, the footsteps and the tyre tracks and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good, actually, yeah.
That'd be just... not because, I don't think they exist, just because it'd just be really interesting to see it all in one go.
See if you can see,
like...
spot the golf ball that they hit.
Or, Stanley Kubrick's notebook that he left. That's what they're really trying to hide. Stanley Kubrick was up there on the moon directing it. They won't let you know that, though.
No.
Sadly, that's the only Kubrick reference in this episode.
Well, now that the astronauts have finished, the spotlight shifts to the astronomers. And one of those people whose research has been particularly badly affected by the problems with Hubble has joined us in the studio as well. It's Dr. Martin Ward from Oxford University. Martin, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, what is your research and how has it been hampered by the troubles with Hubble?
My research is in the area of black hole studies, in particular whether black holes exist at the very centres of some galaxies. Now, rather than take pictures of galaxies, we decided to adopt a different approach. We used the Hubble as a light bucket, as it were, and by studying carefully the flickering of light from very close to the centres of some galaxies, it's possible to infer whether a black hole exists there or not. Of course, this is rather indirect evidence. We would like, in addition to that, clear in-focus images.
OK. What have we got here?
What we're seeing here is a pre-Hubble repair image of the centre of a galaxy. But even in its degraded state, we can see this disk-like structure around the centre, which provides us with some tantalising hints that a black hole might exist. Now, after the repair mission, it will now be possible to zoom right into the very core of this galaxy and to study the swirling motions of the gas and the stars, and possibly even to weigh the black hole.
Wow.
As a something of a sartorial expert, Mark, I feel like you might have something to say about Dr. Martin Ward here.
What a very special outfit he's wearing, Ross. I dread to use the word clothes. I think outfit is much more fitting. He looks like, I have to say, he does look like an academic.
I think he looks like an 80s Eastern European cop.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't see how they're not, why do they have to be different things, Russ? Yeah. I think a lot of 80s Eastern European cops look like academics. in that they're always out of time.
Yeah.
He is, what a very confident interviewee he is.
Oh yeah, no, he's great. He's great.
Yeah,
He's
very
great at
assured.
describing, what he's doing.
Yeah.
But
what a mess he looks.
but at no point am I taking any information because I'm just staring at his amazing outfit and hair.
It's absolutely amazing. I mean, what is he? He's got like this kind of weird, shiny neoprene jacket that looks like it's waterproof.
But it's a suit jacket though, isn't it?
Suit jacket. Yeah, sorry, that's what I mean by jacket. Yeah, suit jacket. A blazer.
It's a suit jacket made out of the material that a bomber jacket would be made out of.
Yeah, absolutely practical. His hair is amazing as well.
Yes,
that can't go unremarked upon. It reminded me of, if anyone remembers Flight of the Conchords, Brett from Flight of the Conchords adds hair to his bike helmet so that his hairstyle is present even when he's got a bike helmet on. Then when he takes off the bike helmet, obviously the hair goes with it. And there's something like, and it really reminded me of that because it looks like it has been put on his head, like just dropped. And he's got no sideburns whatsoever. He's got all this curly hair, this mop top curly hair that kind of looks like it should be kind of an afro, but isn't. Very confusing. Maybe you can describe it better.
It's not that he hasn't got any sideburns. It's that he aggressively has no sideburns.
Oh, yeah.
It reminded me of the famous Simpsons episode when Mr. Burns runs a baseball team. And he keeps telling the player, Don Mattingly, to shave off his sideburns, even when Don Mattingly hasn't got any sideburns. And that's all I could think of when I was looking at it, because it's like he has really, really tried not to have sideburns to the point at which it's made his hair look weird.
A very odd hairline. And as a result, I can't remember anything he said.
No, but I think it's mainly the screwed up version of Hubble, which incidentally I sent you a photograph of last night. When you turn it upside down, looks like it's got a face. So I think you can see that on Instagram.
Oh yeah, Hubble's face.
Yeah, but he showed us a picture of what the out of focus Hubble image of a black hole was, and he was telling us that once it's fixed, he was looking forward to seeing better pictures of black holes. I think that's what he was talking about.
Yes, it was, and then actually he'll then be able to measure and weigh it and a whole lot of things that they just simply can't at the moment.
Which, of course, actually Hubble did. I mean, Hubble has proved that black holes exist at the centre of universes, galaxies. Yeah, so Martin Wald, I looked him up on the internet, and there's photos of him at different stages of his life. He has always had weird hair, and it's never gone grey. So I'm wondering, is it a wig?
The W word did pop into my mind as I was watching it, along with the classic, I'm sure we said this before, the classic Terry Wogan quote. If I was going to buy a wig, do you think I'd buy this? Yeah. And the answer is yes, because you're trying to throw everyone off the scent.
I'd love to see Terry Wogan without hair. I wonder what he looked like.
No images exist. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It is odd. I mean, we shouldn't be judging him on his looks, but yeah, sod it, we are.
I found a astronomy website which for some reason had astronomy lookalikes, and Martin Ward came in at number 91, and they claimed that he looked like Don Everly from the Everly Brothers after his brother died.
How wonderfully specific.
Yeah. So that's something for the people at home to Google. Why is his outfit so crumpled? It seems like I feel like he's just woken up on a floor somewhere. Is that just? It's just academics, isn't it? Isn't it?
Academics, that's what I mean. That's why it reminded me.
Any concern for their appearance, so they just
they're too busy thinking big thoughts.
Yeah, I guess
and
so.
Sleeping in their clothes. It kind of reminded me. It's like, if you took the Jez Nelson thermal stealth suit but turned it into an outfit any man can wear around town, this is what it would look and sound like. Like, he is really assured on camera, almost to the point of, like, he begins to sound a bit cocky by the end. And I can almost look behind Howard's eyes, a kind of a sense of, like, all right, get back in your box.
Well, he's got a big telescope and he's going to use it.
These days, even university students are getting smaller. Parents who want to try to match up their precious offspring to this 3-year-old could try playing them a bit of Mozart. Apparently, listening to complex musical patterns like his sonata in D major before an IQ test warms up the brain in all the right places and boosts your score. Unfortunately, the effect doesn't last long. Give it 25 minutes and you're back to where you started.
Pause.
Pryce.
For a longer lasting effect on your IQ, amateur boxing might do the trick. The controversial finding of one study showed that going 3 rounds seemed to improve the speed of mental functioning. The researchers put it down to heightened arousal and increased blood supply to the brain from blows to the head. However, there may be a less dangerous way to sharpen your faculties.
Eating sweets could damage your health.
But perhaps not your mind, if you believe one French company. They claim to have added an extra memory-enhancing ingredient to their range of chocolate.
If they do buy them, then we're saying don't forget to brush your teeth.
That's it. That segment ends with a text saying, "That's it." It kind of sums up, really, isn't it? It's a load of old rubbish. It's by far the worst segment on this programme. It doesn't deserve to be in the programme. It's awful.
No, it's the one segment that kind of feels like it's being kind of crowbarred in to appeal to the illusion of what they think young people want, or something like that. You know, like it just it's such a different tone and style to the rest of the program that it sticks out like the proverbial sore thumb, and it's actually rotten. It's really awful. It goes on for far too long. Like the idea of one of these little kind of throwaway slightly. So to describe it, you'll have heard the voiceover, and if you're not watching on the YouTube channel, what it is, it's lots of kind of stock footage being repurposed and overlaid across each other to kind of.
It's like a video collage, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's very 90s looking. The key thing really are the words being spoken. There's no real image that adds anything onto it whatsoever. It goes on for so long. Yeah. So the idea of these little bite-sized little blips, you can see how they could be useful. Like you can how you'd be able to go like, oh, here's a really interesting thing. It doesn't really warrant a segment, so we'll just tell it to you, in 30 seconds, like a Pathé newsreel or something like that. And this really outstays its welcome because it has nothing to say. And what it does say, obviously, I'm sure you'll tell us, but IQ tests are not really not seen as the most objective measurement of intelligence.
No.
Really, so the idea that here's a way of kind of improving your aptitude of these tests is I don't know. It's just a lot of effort is being put into it. I'm imagining, because I can't imagine it was easy to kind of create imagery like this. At the same time, it feels very lazy.
Yeah, it's no surprise it didn't last long. I mean, it's the only time we've ever seen one of these segments that does this, and it's just so incongruous to the rest of the program. It's got that sort of youthy sort of
Def Jam, was it Def 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, sort of
the word or whatever.
The thing it really reminded me of was what's the word for something that comes before?
The progenitor
of Eurotrash, which was a program called Rapido, presented by Anton de Con, and it had a very distinctive opening title sequence, and it's very similar to that. So I feel like they may have copied it from there. And the other thing is I didn't like it when I watched it, and then I've looked up the claims that they make in it, and they're all lies, Mark. Not only is it a rubbish segment, it's a rubbish segment full of lies.
I'm in no way shocked, Russ. Go on.
So this whole idea that listening to music improves your IQ, it's one of those things where somebody publishes, we've had it before on the programme, somebody publishes a scientific paper, journalist gets hold of it, completely misinterprets the paper and then runs with it, and then everyone thinks it's the truth. So there was one scientific paper where somebody found that if you made somebody listen to Mozart for 15 minutes, actually, if you listen to any classical music for 15 minutes, afterwards you would be slightly better at solving puzzles involving folding paper or mazes and things like that.
Yeah.
Journalists got hold of that and immediately said, Mozart increases your IQ, which is not the conclusion of the paper at all. And everyone took it and ran with it, to the point that in Georgia...
the country or the state?
The American state, obviously. In 1998, so this kept going for a long time. In 1998, Zell Miller, the governor of Georgia,
good name,
announced that his state budget would include $105,000 a year to provide every child born in Georgia with a tape or CD of classical music. He said,
"Sorry, how much?
$105,000 a year." He said, no one questions that listening to music at a very early age affects the spatial temporal reasoning that underlies math and engineering and even chess. he played some of Beethoven's Ode to Joy on a tape recorder, and then asked the Senate, or wherever it was he was in front of, said, "Now, don't you feel smarter already?"
Wow.
And then in response, there was a state representative called Homer DeLoach, which is an even better name. He said, "I asked about the possibility of including some Charlie Daniels, obviously famously the writer of the Dueling Banjos song, or something like that. But they said they thought classical music has a greater positive impact. Having never studied the impacts too much, I guess I'll just have to take the word for that." Old Howard DeLoach was right. There's absolutely no connection between listening to classical music and improved performance. It's purely the fact that listening to something just makes your brain start working. And that's it. So you could listen. You could listen to a pneumatic drill, or
Tomorrow's World all the time.
Tomorrow's World all the time, and it would improve your skills. You're literally just waking your brain up. There's no, there's nothing. But this led me to find, which I think is the fact of the episode. But apparently there is a sewage works in a place called Truenbritzen. My German's not very good, so I don't know how to pronounce it properly. But it's an hour southwest of Berlin, and they play Mozart to the sewage. They play Mozart to the sewage because they claim it makes the microbes work more efficiently, and that they particularly like the magic flute.
Do they now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the lies. And then the second claim they have is that boxing improves your IQ. Is that the second one they said?
Basically, they say that, yeah.
Absolutely doesn't. Of course it doesn't. You're being smashed in the head. They did a study of child kickboxers in Thailand, and they found that the ones who'd been doing kickboxing for 5 years all had an IQ that's 10 points lower than ones that hadn't been kickboxing. So that's a big lie. And then the third claim in that segment is that a French chocolate manufacturer has added a secret ingredient to chocolate to improve IQs. Do you know what that secret ingredient is, Mark?
Bullshit, Ross.
Cocoa. Yeah, so cocoa contains a thing called flavonols. They have sort of anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. So there's an idea that they probably help keep your brain in a better condition than if you didn't have them. However, you can get flavonols also from apples, grapes, broccoli, tomatoes, beans, kale, and onions. So that's also a massive load of rubbish. So this whole segment is a total write-off, Mark. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and not just the content, but the delivery and the execution, I should say. The execution coming off a segment where, Dr. Martin Ward was complaining about his inability to measure black holes. We now have the black hole of this episode sucking all life and joy straight into it. It's a miracle they get out alive.
Over the past few weeks, you may have seen advertisements like this for a brand new slimming pill called Figure Form. It claims you can eat what you want and still lose weight. Or maybe you've seen this one. Virtually the same, only the name of the pill this time is Speed Slim CP2000. Both quote satisfied customers. Since taking Speed Slim CP2000, I've gone down a whole dress size and have a different date each night. I'm a new woman, says TB of Derby. And Figure Form has a satisfied customer too. Since taking Figure Form, I've gone down a whole dress size and have a different date each night. I'm a new woman, says TB of Derby. Sounds familiar? According to the ads, both the pills work in exactly word for word the same way. They block the digestion of starch, therefore not allowing the foods you enjoy eating from turning into calories. But there is one major difference between the pills. They have completely different ingredients. Strange, but the picture got even stranger when a different advert appeared for the Australian 3-week slimming diet, which has exactly the same ingredients as Figure Form. So these two have the same ingredients but different claims, and these two have the same claims but different ingredients. So what's in them then? This one, Speed Slim CP2000, basically contains cellulose gelatin and a substance called chromium picolinate. But these two have a much more impressive looking list of Latin ingredients, most of which turn out to be peas, beans and lentils. We rang the company distributing all 3 of these pills to see if they'd tell us how they worked and if there was any research we could look at. First of all, they refused to talk to us. We tried again, and they said they had plenty of scientific evidence, but they weren't prepared to tell us what it was, where it was published, or who had developed the tablets.
Now, weirdly, Mark, this segment was the one, when I first watched this programme, that excited me the most.
Oh.
Not because of any of the content of it.
Okay.
But I was absolutely delighted to see that Kate Bellingham was wearing an outfit where the sleeves don't match the body.
What have we done to ourselves, Russ?
So, obviously, Kate Bellingham, very much the Maggie Philbin replacement.
Yes.
Shaking Maggie, as some of our listeners might understand the concept of. And that's what we discussed last time we saw her. And then she turns up on this episode, and the 2 outfits she's wearing, the first outfit in New York has no sleeves. And then this one is an absolutely horrendous combination of embroidered black waistcoat and red shirt underneath. And I frankly, I punched the air when I saw it, Mark. She did.
Wow. What if I told you, Russ? What if I told you that I wasn't quite so confident it ticks the box in the way that you think it does? What if I told you that the giant lapel of the red shirt that pops out under the waistcoat, I think means that maybe the sleeves does match the body?
Outrageous, Mark.
I'm just saying.
I'm not having it.
Yeah, it is something, isn't it? God, it is such a 90s outfit. And again, it's amazing to think, we were discussing earlier in a previous episode how you think back to decades and you think about how specific decades have specific looks. They're iconic. They're iconic looks associated with a decade, so that, you can easily dress up as somebody and go like, oh, you're from the 70s, you're from the 80s. And how the 90s, I don't think the vernacular of 90s dress sense or fashion is quite as easily boiled down or codified. Like, it's a bit broader. And maybe actually it represents the fact that, youth culture or fashion culture was maybe a bit more granular. So like at the same time that you had girls dressing up like, Rachel from Friends, you had guys who are looking like they live in Seattle and it's the grunge scene. There wasn't that kind of overarching quote unquote fashion sense. We go like, there you go, 80s shoulder pads, or it's yeah, exactly. But every time you look at the 90s, you are reminded how 90s the 90s look. And her outfit is absolutely 90s. I couldn't tell you why. I couldn't write down what it was that made up her outfit that makes me go like, oh, that's so 90s.
Because it's utterly horrible.
It's
with
not
no
great.
sense of designer flair to it at all. It's just awful.
But and even Howard's outfit that we I don't think we've commented on, because normally we give Howard a light to medium coat down, but this by his standards is relatively measured.
Extremely understated,
but it's still,
by Howard standards.
But it's still incredibly 90s. Not least down, he's wearing a suit jacket that has 4 buttons on, which is basically a crime. And it's that kind of green that a lot of suits in the 90s had, and then he's also wearing a green shirt. It's like, it's interesting. It's just like we can't codify it. It's like the Great British Constitution. It's uncodifiable, and in that lack of ability to codify, it's organic and slippery and always available to kind of be whatever it needs to be. So is 90s fashion, Russ.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't make a comeback.
But it kind of has.
It's so unpleasant on the eyes.
No, it kind of has made a comeback, because you do see a lot of girls now. I think one of the more easily spottable bit of 90s Renaissance fashion is kind of like a black or a dark coloured dress with spaghetti straps over like a white t-shirt.
Oh right, yes,
which is a really 90s look. Yeah. There are a lot of women out there in that kind of style.
Yeah, I've not seen any women wearing embroidered waistcoats with bright coloured shirts underneath, though.
No, well, clearly not in Amsterdam. To be fair, I don't think I've seen it in Hackney either. It's just really interesting. It's not a great look for Kate, unfortunately. No. Not that we're shaming her fashion choices, because normally we try and save that for Howard, but he kind of lets us down in this one by being moderately sensible.
He does, doesn't he? Yeah.
He looks more like a mobile phone salesman in this episode, so it's just something we can at least understand. And you describe her as Shaken Maggie, which, as you say, some listeners will recognise that kind of reference. And, to extend that a little bit further, this is Shaken Watchdog, isn't it? This is Tomorrow's World.
Yes.
doing a bit of consumer protection. They're definitely doing it from their perspective, which is the science of these slimming pills, which is really interesting. But I think it lacks a little bit of bite and venom to really drive home.
Yeah.
Like it kind of slightly wusses out at the end, doesn't it? It's like they don't really say, this is, I don't think they name the companies, they name the products, obviously, but they kind of leave it hanging as to whether they think it's nonsense or not, which, Lynn's Foles would leave you in...
I tell you what, I had this weird mental image of poor old Kate, stepping out of the studio in TV Centre and just going...
I know where you're going.
Down the corridor, and just Lynn Foles Wood and John Stapleton's just standing there with koshes in their hand, just going...
Yeah.
Are you on our manor? Get off of our patch.
What you're doing is a potential death trap.
Yeah.
I know exactly where you're going with that one. Yeah. Oh, Kate. It'd be horrible if something happens to you.
We've got all sorts of dangerous...
Yeah. Here, we're going to make you try on this shell suit.
Yeah. Oh.
Stay away from the three-bar fire.
A Pop-Tart. It's not a particularly Tomorrow's Worldy bit because it's kind of consumer advice. What I thought was interesting was that it was clearly the same company selling these quackery pills that don't do anything. But they'd gone to the trouble of making one with different ingredients. I don't understand why.
I didn't get that either. Funny, I agree. I was much more interested in what's the reasoning and logistics behind. Like if it really is a scam, just knock it out. Just knock it out. So as many as you can.
You're going to rip people off. Who cares? Might as well cut costs down to the bone, surely. But I thought it was good. It was good that it turned out that the main ingredient in them was just like lentils and beans, and she got
I'm always a big fan of that.
Lovely bowl with colourful beans out and showed us what beans are.
She puts her hand in like Amelie. Yeah, I've always enjoyed that. When you are confronted with a list of incredible scientific terms, and then they reveal that it's just something really domestic.
Yeah,
it's always a nice thing, and she does a really good job by literally bringing out a bowl of kind of as you say, peas and beans, the lentils. Yeah, all that is really nice. Like kind of decrypting the science of the pills is really good. But the weird thing is, by focusing on the science of them so much, it almost legitimizes the pills, because the subtext seems to be like, there is some science behind this, as opposed to no, this is just nonsense. Let's get down to brass tacks here. This is nonsense. You cannot buy a pill that will help you lose weight without you doing what you need to do to lose weight. We're sorry. We wish that it was. It just doesn't happen. There is no miracle cure for anything, really. Actually, with the exception of the HPV vaccine, which apparently is going to cure us of cervical cancer, which is astonishing. But in general, there are no miracle cures. You've always got to do a little bit of work. We wish that wasn't the case. And here's an example. It promises all this. They don't tell you what the science is that they base these pills on, because they haven't based it on science. It's BS. So by them trying to imagine the science they base it on, they kind of weirdly legitimize them. It's almost like they've lifted them up above where they should be. To be honest, this really should be on Watchdog, where Watchdog basically will turn around and say, this is BS. Don't touch them with a barge pole. You're wasting your money. Because, that's what it comes down to. You're wasting your money, It's not going to kill you. You're not going to poison yourself, but you're not going to lose weight. Don't bother. Tomorrow's World doesn't quite do that, because obviously they're focused on the science, because the science is interesting.
Yeah.
Actually the fact that there might be something in it and there isn't is interesting, but you kind of wanted to land a little bit harder against the pills, and it doesn't quite. And even her little sign off, you just need hard work into... Oh, actually, she does sort of kind of... losing weight is difficult, and there's a lot more to it than just being more active and eating less food. Unfortunately, there's a lot more to it, and maybe that's just how things have developed and our knowledge has improved. My wife is very knowledgeable about these things, and it's really interesting. It's really interesting, the science and the way the body behaves. If you just try and lose weight by not eating, your body behaves like you're in danger and acts in a completely different way to the way you just like to think that it'll just drop away. It doesn't. Your body's not designed to do it. Really sorry. So the fact that she then sums it up by saying, just put a lid in the biscuit tin is kind of disrespectful. I don't know. It's just so flippant.
Do you think the biscuit tin, do you think that's dying out? Because I haven't got... I have got biscuit... I have got a biscuit
drawer.
Tin, but I don't keep biscuits in it. But I feel like when we were kids, everybody's house would have a biscuit tin that had had a variety of biscuits in it.
The family circle. Or the Danish shortbread biscuit tin.
Replenished whenever necessary. With an extra packet of custard creams or whatever like that. Is that a dying custard?
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, we have a little biscuit barrel that we put biscuits in. The biscuit tin.
I just can't remember. I just can't remember. Ever go around somebody, our age's house, and them going, "Oh, do you want a biscuit?" and then getting a biscuit tin out. Whereas, older people, that's pretty standard operating procedure, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, but then, I mean, one thing, I think one of the more iconic collections of biscuits in a container is the family circle, where you have like your Jammy Dodger and your custard cream and your bourbons, and I'm sure everyone at home knows what I'm talking about. That's not a tin anymore. That's almost certainly plastic. So that's gone. I think the idea of the tin obviously was that like once you got a special selection of biscuits, and now you're going to put all your damn biscuits in there as a reminder. Yeah. It's like that I think is gone. But we definitely have a thing to put our biscuits in, probably because we eat our biscuits relatively slowly. And you don't. The last thing you want is to.
You're a big tea drinker, though, aren't you?
I'm a big tea drinker, so that is tea is a biscuit enabler. Yeah. So that's why we usually have some biscuits on the go, but then there's time when we don't. I run a bit hot and cold when it comes to biscuits. At the moment, we do. We have some lovely chocolate digestives, and we have some lovely choc chip cookies. Delicious.
I'm surprised you pronounce it digestives. I imagine you pronounce it digestive.
To be honest, Russ, I prefer to call them home wheats, like I grew up with. But that's a reference not everyone gets. Not everyone remembers the home wheat. I was shocked to learn relatively recently they're called chocolate digestives. Yeah, it's an interesting one, but it did slightly annoy me that she was so kind of flippant, because people's weight is such a personal thing, and it causes a lot of upset. It almost felt a bit like I'm not going to question Kate Bellingham's weight or how she gets there or how she maintains it or whatever, but it was a bit like, oh, look at you fatty trying to eat these pills. Stop eating biscuits. That's not how it comes across, but it's how it feels like it signs off at the end. It's a wee bit fat shamey, to be honest. And that annoyed me, because I tell you what, Watchdog wouldn't have done that. Watchdog would have been more sympathetic to the end customer. Having said that, as I said in my notes, I don't believe anyone who's watching Tomorrow's World avidly and watching this segment would necessarily have believed that there was a pill that would help them get where they want to go.
You would think that they would have cottoned on to the idea that even most of the medical things on Tomorrow's World that are actually medical don't actually come to fruition. So the idea that an advert in the back of the Daily Star is going to be some sort of miracle thing seems unlikely.
And an advert that in 1993 looks like it was originally published in 1978.
Yeah. But it's got people pulling out their giant. I love pictures
I know you do.
of people pulling out the waistbands of their trousers to show how much weight they've lost.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. Does that even exist these days? It's a great trope.
I don't know.
It would be a great thing to go to a fancy dress party as. Just buy a pair of giant trousers, just walk around a fancy dress party constantly holding your trousers out all the time.
Hello, I'm Jared, the Subway sandwich spokesperson. No, don't ask me what's on my computer. Do you know what? Here's the thing. Now is not the time to be asked that question, but come the 28th of December, when commercial television will be full of ads for summer holidays and diet programs, maybe then will you see I feel like it's still something people do, because it is such a clever, simple way of conveying what I was and what I am now.
Yeah. Right, anyway, anything else? Oh, hang on. I realise I've not told you about whether these swimming pills work or not.
Are you now about to tell me that they absolutely work?
Mark. So there's a chromium picolinate, which is the supplement that they keep talking about.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's a very weird thing. It seems it's a supplement in search of a use. So you can sell it. You can sell pills of it, and clearly they are, as this demonstrates. And occasionally they'll make claims about what it does, like the weight loss. Sometimes they've claimed that it builds muscle. Other times they've said that it cures diabetes. Yeah. But it turns out that your body just completely chucks it straight back out again. So 99% of any of it that you ingest comes out the other end untouched. So it's this weird thing where it seems like there's somebody who's manufacturing this particular chemical, and they're desperate to find a market for it. So they're just making up spurious claims. And because they're allowed to sell it, they kind of get away with it. But it genuinely just does nothing. It just literally just passes through your body, doesn't do anything. So if anybody out there can think of a use for chromium picolinate, you'll become a millionaire.
Well, I'm glad you cleared up that the pills don't work. That was really important. The other thing is, Kate Bellingham does refer to it as the obesity at one point.
Oh, she does, yeah.
For
yeah.
no particular reason. Yeah, it's very odd. It's an odd little kind of...
Yeah, the obesity will give you the diabetes, and then you have to get treated on the National Health.
Oh, the National Health, yeah. well remembered.
I hope she's not referring to me. This is marvellous stuff, you know. Look, you put two pieces together, and it sticks really tightly, and it's really difficult to pull them apart again, which means that you can do this. Really excellent. And, well, what Carmen was demonstrating is obviously why Velcro was invented, but now they've actually come up with a practical use for it, using a new super strength version, which means that Velcro is about to become part of the furniture. Because, that's better, designers are now using it as part of the furniture. Carmen, come on. Come and give me a hand. I'm going to turn this into a desk, all right? Now, you might well ask, why not just use nails and a hammer? But they say that Velcro... If you use this stuff, if you can get it in the slot.
Yeah.
The more that you sit and move Velcro around once it's in place, the stronger it gets. So using your furniture and actually moving it around actually makes the joint stronger, not weaker.
Hang on.
How are you doing?
I think I'm stuck to it.
Well, don't get too close to this. You might become part of the desk yourself. If you...
I'm an occasional tail.
There you go. Let's do the back now.
Ready?
We start by, I think, the nice little bit of business Howard does at the beginning, where there I was complaining about the fact that, Kate Bellingham seems to sign off the slimming pills section by fat-shaming Britain, only for Howard to take complete umbrage and ask if she's talking about him, which is, it's really well done.
Yes, it is, yeah. It's funny, Howard's one of those people that you think of being a bit chubby, but actually he's not chubby, he's completely trim.
I don't think I've ever thought of Howard being chubby, but I know what you mean, yeah. I get what you're saying.
I suppose he's just sort of ruddy-faced and healthy, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
We recently added a bit extra to our audit, wasn't it? I think it was probably last episode we added it.
It was the last episode.
Episode ends on a damp squib.
That's the phrase.
And I think this absolutely qualifies, but also I really enjoyed it because it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
We're talking about an episode where they go into depth about the issues with the Hubble Space Telescope and the fact that there's currently an operation to repair it. And Judith Hann, we've posited has genuinely probably saved lives with a piece about the importance of having a cervical screening for your health and how you should make an appointment and make sure that you go every 3 years. So there is, on the one hand, there is something slightly disheartening about the fact that this episode ends on two presenters really failing to build DIY flat pack furniture with Velcro, and yet it's absolutely joyful from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And mostly because they don't seem frustrated by it. They seem like they're having a great time, and the fact that it sort of works but doesn't work is just brilliant. And by the way, it doesn't work from the beginning. When, you describe it, after Howard's lovely little bit where he takes umbrage at what Kate Bellingham is to say, who, by the way, clearly not in the studio, clearly not live, clearly pre-recorded.
Yeah, so after Bellingham calls Howard fat, Howard then suggests that Velcro, he's got some sort of special super strong Velcro, which is definitely a lie because Velcro is Velcro.
Velcro is Velcro.
He then suggests that the new way of putting together furniture, instead of using a hammer and nails, you can just put Velcro strips on the various pieces. So he's got a flat pack desk in front of him, which has got Velcro on the edges that require sticking together. And his claim is that this is just as strong as putting together a piece of furniture normally, which anybody with a brain who has ever used Velcro immediately knows that definitely isn't the case, and that definitely is not going to work.
I mean, literally, a child of 3 can prise Velcro apart on their shoes.
Yeah, and then it's beautifully proved by the fact that Carmen comes bounding in, and it's one of those. It's one of those. I've not seen one of these for years, but they used to be pretty popular. Where it's like a trampoline in front of an inflatable wall, and the wall's covered in Velcro, and then she's wearing a Velcro suit. And she bounces on the trampoline, does a somersault, hits the Velcro wall, and then immediately peels off of it.
Falls off. Yeah. Absolutely does not stick to that wall.
Demonstrating that Velcro isn't very strong at all.
Yeah.
Which sets up the segment perfectly, because then they attempt to build this desk. I don't know how much they'd tried in rehearsal, Not much, I guess, because Carmen hasn't got a clue what she's doing.
And neither of them do. Like, literally, there's bits where Howard is staring and thinking, like, I don't know how this goes together. Don't shame just her. Like, she's the only one who really seems to care about how it goes together.
My faivourite bit of this is the fact that Howard suddenly realises that she's wearing a suit made of Velcro and she's using Velcro. And he goes, don't get it too close to your suit.
She keeps us sticking to the furniture.
Which is a nice bit of accidental comedy, I think. But obviously, clearly, they totally failed to build the desk because it's a ridiculous idea. And they,
but to be fair, in the defence,
massive time pressure as well.
I was about to say, in the defence, that they give themselves 45 seconds to put together this table, this desk.
But throughout, I think the amazing thing is that throughout, Howard is constantly exactly all of the stuff he needs to talk about. So he explains the whole concept, and then we need to view next week and all of this without missing a beat, even though he's presumably also in his brain contending with the fact that he's under a time pressure and he's also trying to solve this puzzle and he's also worrying about whether Carmen can do
sticking to the desk. And no doubt somebody's in his ear counting down.
And raving at him, presumably, and he's just doing this all like it's natural. It's amazing.
It's very impressive. Yeah, I mean, not the segment, but like but like the plate spinning involved.
Yes, yeah.
It's good fun. I enjoyed it. I really did, actually. And again, it's because they take it in good humour. If they were like, oh my God, this isn't working, and panicking and kind of maybe getting snippy at each other, it would have been wonderful in a completely different way. But they're inviting you in on the shoddy chaos of the whole thing. Like, even actually, the thing is, like, Carmen fails to stick to the Velcro wall like she's supposed to. So she goes off camera and then does it a second time and then succeeds a little bit more, but mostly fails. And I remember thinking, like, you've got to build a desk. You should be with Howard building a desk. But she's like, no. I can do this. I can do this. I know I can do this, which I liked. I liked that kind of competition she was having with herself.
Well, I suppose I mean, as a first place shot putter.
Oh, that's true.
I guess, that's a natural
right.
sportswoman in there.
That and the golf as well, you know.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But I always think of Velcro. I think we may have mentioned this when we discussed Teflon.
Yes, we did, yeah.
It's like Teflon and Velcro are the two magic products. It's so magic that everyone thinks were invented by NASA, neither of which were. And they're technically they're opposites, aren't they? They're like...
Yeah, that's true.
Teflon is non-stick, Velcro is pure stick. And I think they're like the two sort of everyday inventions of the 20th century that we all think about. So I was quite interested to read into it to find out, how it came about and things like that. And it turns out that it was a Swiss man called George de Mistral in 1941. He was out hunting
with his dog.
Dog, yes.
I do. I remember the story. Yeah.
And one of those burdock seeds, which is like a big circular seed with hook, and if you throw it at your mates, it always sticks to their jumper. Always good fun.
Well, I think a useful reference is it's like one half of Velcro.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And in nature, nature, the other half of Velcro is an animal's fur. That's how it works in nature. But he went, oh, that's interesting. All this stuff stuck to my dog. I wonder what it looks like under a microscope. So he looks under the microscope, and he realised that it was just a series of very tiny, tiny hooks. And then, luckily for him, nylon had just been invented because you can't do this with cotton or wool because they don't have the
loops.
But they don't have. They're not like sturdy enough.
Oh, got you. I see. Right. Yeah.
What's the word?
The structure, the material
they're not stiff. They're not stiff enough. But luckily, nylon has been invented, so he started buggering about with nylon. So that's how he did it. So he got a patent for it in 1955. And immediately NASA went, oh, this is great stuff. We're definitely going to use this in our space program. So I think that's why it's associated with NASA, because they were the first ones to kind of popularise it. Very much the same as Teflon. Then the next people to love it were skiers. Because I always think skiers always think of themselves as basically land-based astronauts, don't they? They always wear very similar gear, don't they? I reckon.
I suppose. Yeah.
I reckon in the back of their minds they're going, "Oh, I'm just like Neil Armstrong here with my skiing gear on."
Mm-hmm. Is that why they're so obsessed with fresh powder so they can step in it?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Makes sense there, Russ. You're right. Yeah.
And then the third use that came out, once the skiers got hold of it, somebody went, oh, this would be great for children's clothes, because children are, idiots, can't use buttons or zips, but Velcro, it's easy. And I remember, I don't know about you, Mark, right? Do you remember getting your first set of Velcro trainers? Because I remember it being...
I do.
I remember it being incredibly exciting, just the concept of Velcro on your trainers, because it made you feel really futuristic. And
well, it was it was achievable. Like you could do up your own shoes, but it really did feel futuristic.
Yeah, I don't own any Velcro trainers now though. Kind of grow out of it, didn't you?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, by rights, really, everything should be Velcro, shouldn't it? Isn't Velcro better than buttons?
Is Velcro better than buttons? Asks Russell Cope.
I mean, is there any reason to use, but apart from aesthetic reasons, is there any reason to use? There isn't, is there? If we're living in the future, by rights, we should be Velcroing everything, surely.
I get what you're saying, but I think the aesthetic nature of buttons is definitely much more appealing than a Velcro.
But is it appealing? Is the reason it's appealing because we instinctively know that buttons are worse than Velcro? Because there's that thing that things are aesthetically pleasing if they're technically worse, isn't there?
Oh, well, they only exist because they're aesthetically pleasing, not because they're good enough. Yeah. You know, the buttons overcame the tyranny of zips, so I don't see why they can't see off Velcro as well.
They should bring out a new version of Button Moon called a Velcro Moon. That'd be good.
Yeah,
we're off the Velcro Moon.
I have to say, it seems highly unlikely they'd be launching off Button Moon or Velcro Moon. That's a one and done.
That's a great idea for a YouTube video. A Velcro Moon, and then the spaceship can't lift off.
Well, you got to cut this out, Russ, so that you can do this.
So anyway, other things about Velcro. The space shuttle Velcro I think he mentions that, doesn't he? Space shuttle Velcro.
He does. It's using the space shuttle.
And this is a nice combination. The loops on the space shuttle Velcro are made of Teflon.
Oh.
Polyester hooks, and it's got glass backing. And they apparently on every space shuttle mission they took 10,000 inches of this Velcro because it was so useful for doing stuff up there. The military do use it, but it has limited use in the military because it's so noisy. So if you're trying to sneak up on the enemy and you go, they might hear you. It was used in the first ever human heart surgery, and also, this is a nice little one, they put a little patch of the hooks, on the inside of astronauts' helmets so they can scratch their nose on it when they get an itchy nose.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So how was he using the first heart transplant?
Oh, they just Velcroed two bits together. I don't know.
Oh, okay, brilliant.
Yeah, they Velcroed two bits of the heart together.
Fab. Yeah.
They tried using buttons and zips, didn't work, but they
yeah, okay.
This wall that Carmen jumps up against, do you know who the first person to do this was? And he's already been mentioned in this episode. That's a clue.
Is it the astronaut who's been on 5 shuttles?
No.
Is it Hubble?
David Letterman.
I don't know, who is it? Oh!
So there's a lovely clip. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he's interviewing like the boss of the US branch of Velcro, the company, because it is a company name. And they dress David Letterman up in a Velcro suit. And the boss throws a Velcro basketball at him and he keeps catching it. And then he does a Carmen. He doesn't do a somersault like Carmen does. He does it just straight. Yeah. But he just jumps up and attaches to the wall. So it's basically a giant Velcro advert. But it's good fun to see. You know, it's from 1984, I think.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. And well, that's all I can tell you about Velcro. Obviously, Velcro furniture clearly never caught on. Because it's an insane idea.
Can you just imagine someone taking a tumble when they've had a couple of drinks and the entire living room falling apart? I mean, it's just utter nonsense. And the way he was trying to justify it by like, oh, well, you know, they found out that like the more you use furniture that comes together with Velcro, the stronger it gets. It's like, come on. Come on.
Maybe, is it deliberate that they keep the shit things till last? Maybe it is.
But this goes back to the peroration problem that Tomorrow's World has, which is like, it seems to me easier and more sensible to finish on a high note than it does to kind of try and bury your crap item at the end. It's like, no, like bury it in the middle. Then people literally, the last thing they see will literally not be you and Carmen failing to build a desk because she keeps getting stuck to it.
Looking incompetent.
Yeah, absolutely incompetent. So why would you do that? But having said that, this one's fun. But you can see how this could just be a complete disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's luckily they see the humour in it. I don't get this. It's so consistent that the program seems determined to finish on the weakest link. Astonishing, really, isn't it? Quick, send them home, leaving wanting less.
And that's it. That's all I've got, Mark. That's the end of the episode.
It's been a good episode. Yeah, good ep.
I assume you're going to reach for your dusty old bookshelf and.
Do you want me to persist with that bit of theatre? Shall I make a noise and the desk is? There we go. I found it. Let me just get my iPad. All right, then, Russ. Tell us all about 1993.
Well, would you like to hear the cinema box office for this?
I would, because to let people in to a little bit of backstage chinwaggery here, all I know is that when you pulled it up earlier, you pissed yourself laughing.
Well, there's some great films on here. That's all I'm saying, Mark.
All right, I'm excited. So this is the box office for roughly the week 10th of December 1993.
Well, the very day because
Friday.
Tomorrow's World is on a Friday these days, so yeah, this is the actual day
of release. Go for it.
I'm gonna do a top 15, Mark. I'm gonna go.
Oh wow! Okay.
I feel like this podcast needs to be longer, so I'm doing top 15.
It definitely needs more content. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Number 15, True Romance.
Okay. Yeah.
Number 14, Dragon: The Bruce Lee Story.
Oh, okay. Yep. Seen both those. It's exciting stuff.
Number 13, The Piano.
Oh wow. Okay. Jane Campion has a film out this very week.
Oh yeah, she does, doesn't she? Yeah. Number 12, Dave.
Oh, I quite like that film. Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah. Directed by Ivan Reitman, Ghostbusters fan.
Oh, yes.
Number 11, Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey.
Brilliant.
Dog films.
Couldn't care less.
Number 10, Hocus Pocus.
Which is getting a sequel, I believe.
Is it?
Yeah, there was a picture doing the rounds of the three main witches back in costume.
Oh, wow. Probably need less makeup these days.
Well done, Russ.
Number 9, The Concierge, starring Michael J. Fox.
Oh, yeah.
Number 8, film I really enjoyed, So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Oh, yeah.
Number 7, The Man Without a Face.
Okay.
That's the Mel Gibson. I think that's his first film he directed, actually. Number 6, my dad's favourite film, The Remains of the Day.
That's your dad's favourite film?
Yeah. It's either that or Badlands. They're his two favourite films.
Oh, wow. Badlands. Okay. Good choices.
Number 5.
Neither are, terribly cheery.
Number 5, Break Out the Three Seashells. It's Demolition Man.
Demolition Man. Brilliant.
I love that film. I think that's a brilliant. I think that's probably the last truly good Stallone film, I think, maybe. I always think it's funny how, obviously, Stallone and Schwarzenegger, you instinctively compare their careers because they're, big muscle men, action heroes. But there's Stallone, that is the only decent science fiction film that Stallone's ever done.
Yeah.
Whereas Arnie, basically all of his good films are science fiction films.
Yeah, very true.
I wonder what it is about them that makes one better at science fiction than the other. Is it because Arnie's just so weird that he suits the science fiction better and Stallone's more down to earth?
He's don't know, like Arnie's like more of a man out of time and out of place.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a good question.
Number 4, Jurassic Park.
Back at them. Yeah, very good. Okay.
Number 3, Hard Target, the Van Damme classic.
Yeah.
Number 2, Aladdin. And number 1, Adam's Family Values.
Oh, lovely. I like that a lot. I think it's a good film.
It's a great. I'd watch all of those pretty much.
Yeah.
It's a good lineup, that.
Maybe not The Piano, just because I've seen it.
Piano.
It's it's quite slow.
I've never seen it, so.
Oh, it's good. Harvey Keitel's great in it. Everyone's great in it, but Harvey Keitel in particular is very good. You can really see how he used to be a stenographer when he tickles those ivories, Russ. What about the chart music?
Oh, the charts.
Pop chart.
Oh, it's a mixed bag here. There is some good ones in here, but it's well, here we go. Number 10, Again, by Janet Jackson.
Okay.
Number 9, It's All Right by East 17. Number 8, Don't Be a Stranger by Dina Carroll. Number 7.
I don't think I remember that one.
Please Forgive Me by Bryan Adams. Number 6, For Whom the Bell Tolls by the Bee Gees. Number 5, well, how he pronounces it, I would call it Controversy. He pronounces it Controversy.
Controversy.
By Prince, which I think is a remarkable song. There was a point, we were at a festival once, me and my friends, and we realised that you can no matter what song you're listening to, you can sing controversy to the beat of it. It's very clever. I don't know whether you did that deliberately, but yeah. Number 4, Stay Far Away So Close, I've Got You Under My Skin by U2 featuring Frank Sinatra with Bono.
Sorry, U2 with Bono.
So presumably, did Frank Sinatra die maybe recently to this? Stay Far Away So Close, I've Got You Under My Skin. U2,
some kind
Frank
of
Sinatra with Bono.
Is it some kind of Jive Bunny mega mix?
I don't know.
I don't recall that at all, and it automatically sounds like the worst thing I've heard for quite a long time. And anyway.
Garbage, isn't it? I imagine if Frank Sinatra had recently died, I imagine he was absolutely drilling holes through the cemetery. How rapidly
boring through his grave. Yeah.
Number 3, True Love by Elton John and Kiki D. I didn't realise they did another song other than.
No, neither did I.
Number 2, I'd Do Anything for Love, but I Won't Do That by Meatloaf.
Ooh.
And number 1, the absolute floor filler, Mr. Blobby by Mr. Blobby.
Oh, wow. Okay, how wonderful.
Now, I
sticks all the way to Christmas.
About this the other day, didn't I?
You did.
There's been a massive increase in Blobby chat in the media over the past year. Like, there's newspaper articles about Mr. Blobby a lot, and just a real sort of lots of people reminiscing about Mr. Blobby. I think it's very strange. Is it just because the nostalgia train has, reached 1993? Is that what it's all about? I don't.
Yeah, I absolutely. It's the same reason that kind of early 90s fashion is back. It's early 90s moment in the sun.
Yeah, I have to say, watching Mr. Blobby destroying stuff is still quite funny. It's because he really commits. I mean, that Velcro desk, he would have absolutely have gone to town on.
Yeah.
So I'm not particularly bothered by it. But also, the other thing I remember about Mr. Blobby is that in our second year, first year, Spanish lessons, I think it was the first year, one of the first things we were asked to do was to make a wanted poster. And we could make it of any, so because it was the se busca, which means wanted in Spanish. And obviously the idea was just to teach us the word wanted, I guess. But it was like an easy task for first year kids to do. And we could choose any character we wanted, and we all worked away, and then it turned out that pretty much everyone in the class, to a person, had Se Busca,
Senor Blobby.
And it was just the Spanish class room was just covered with a wall of Mr. Blobby wanted posters.
I don't remember that. You and I were in different Spanish classes.
Really dates us quite perfectly.
My memory of first year Spanish was getting the textbook. And you opened up the textbook, and inside there was a picture of Juan Carlos II. And underneath it said simply, "Hola, soy el rey." Hello, I'm the king. And that was it. And then there was another page. The book actually began. That's my memory.
Great stuff. So that's the charts. Argos catalogue. Thankfully, the mighty Russell Hobbs has reclaimed his throne as the most expensive kettle in here by a country mile. Is the most expensive kettle in here. £39.50 for the Russell Hobbs classic stainless steel cordless kettle. 3-pint capacity, polished stainless steel body, plastic lid, water level indicator, non-slip feet, 2,400 watts, and it's BEAB approved.
Brilliant. $39.99 is that?
£39.50.
Wow. Milk?
Milk. 34 pence. Which is all right, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, yeah. That's. Well, how much is a pint of beer?
£1.56.
Yeah, so actually milk is quite reasonable, which is unusual for milk.
A litre of petrol is 46 pence, which in today's price is £1.39. So,
so
that means a pint of milk's about £1.10 or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And a house,
which is expensive.
House is £51,000.
I'm surprised we all haven't got one. God, I don't know, different time. So let's order this episode then. Let's do it. This, usual caveats apply. Most important invention.
Well, I think there's two running. Well, okay, it depends. I think because I'd particularly jump to the Hubble Space Telescope, but I don't think the segment about the Hubble Space Telescope is actually about Hubble. It's about fixing Hubble.
Yeah.
So I don't think that necessarily counts. So that means
if we watched an episode from the early 80s where they were talking about a space telescope, I think it runaway winner.
Yeah.
But they're not. It exists.
So then
it just doesn't work.
I'm going to say purely on how impressed I am by them, I'm going to say noise-cancelling headphones.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly what I was thinking. The most worthless invention? Pretty clear winner here, Russ.
Somehow, beating the diet pills, it's the Velcro desk, isn't it?
100%. Yeah, isn't that amazing that there is something on this show that is a clear and outright scam, and it still isn't the most worthless thing, because ultimately, it's full of peas, beans, and lentils. It's not going to kill you. No. It's not going to do what it's supposed to. Whereas, like that Velcro furniture, that could kill you. Amazing, incredible. Most inaccurate prediction of the future. It's a bit tougher, that one, isn't it?
What do we have?
Well, there's all of New York's buses having noise-cancelling headphones on them. Yeah, it comes to mind immediately.
Yeah, that must be it. Definitely. Yeah.
No, that's it, isn't it? That has to be that. Yeah, because that just didn't. That didn't happen. Worst screw up by a presenter?
It's got to be Carmen immediately peeling off the Velcro wall, isn't it?
Yeah, it does, I think, actually. Yeah, it kind of does. Because initially when I first saw it, was like, oh, it's the fact that they can't build the furniture. But no, that only evidences how stupid the furniture is. It's not their screw up. It's the fact that she has one job, which is to demonstrate the power of Velcro. And I suppose in a very real way, she does literally demonstrate the power of Velcro by falling off the wall. I don't know, maybe it's not a screw up. Maybe she's working from the inside.
Yeah.
I think it's that.
She's being paid off by a big Teflon.
Best attempt at making something boring interesting.
Well, I don't think there's anything particularly boring in this episode. I thought it was all...
No, there isn't.
It wasn't. I think I did a good job of explaining everything.
It's an entertaining program.
Yeah.
There's nothing where like the item was incredibly bad and they really had to dig it out of a hole. They're all quite interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Do we leave that blank? We can if we want.
Well,
it's our show.
I guess watching Howard slowly trying to assemble a Velcro desk without any of the jollity would have been boring, I guess.
True, but luckily they see the humour in it. I know we can leave it blank because I can't think of anything. Whereas before we've had clear and obvious answers. I'm trying to think of some examples to help us. Like if I look back at the boat brolly, underwater paint. Yeah, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. Everything here is pretty decent. Yeah. and they display well. Okay, great. We can move on from that. Best use of music?
Going into this first on, I think objectively the whatever that sort of soul-y sounding music and the noise cancelling thing is a decent piece of music, and I'd like to listen to the whole version. For some reason, that weird sax music from the Denmark piece has
Cruising by Ron Asbury
creeped into my subconscious.
I agree.
I can't wheedle it out.
It's a winner, isn't it? Yeah, it's a winner. Here's a question that has never been more apposite. Best or worst use of furniture?
It's the segment this question was made for.
I know.
It's astonishing.
Who knew? Yeah, Velcro furniture for the win.
Yeah.
Did we see anything in the episode that made it through to the future? Well, noise cancelling, obviously.
Hubble.
The smear test or cervical screening in general. We should give a shout out for that. It doesn't quite land in any of the questions that we have.
But actually the invention that they were pretending to show off
doesn't
make the future.
Which is why I don't think it fits. Well, that's true, I suppose. That doesn't make it through. Maybe it's a worthless invention, except that whole segment isn't really about that. It's about public health. And so a little bit of a shout out to that because it doesn't quite land on any of our comedy questions. I mean, the Hubble repair worked.
Well, it's an absolute treat, yeah.
Absolute treat. And obviously there's still a bridge to Copenhagen.
Very much so, yeah. As long as you've got 35 quid in your pocket.
Oh, that's so much. That is so much. That's like how many pints of milk? So that's 4 good, solid things that kind of made it through. Yeah, that's a pretty good hit rate. I mean, especially the noise cancelling is so much more of a punt than the bridge that was halfway through construction. It's like, that's definitely going to get there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what does this episode tell us about the 10th of December 1993?
It seems very positive and fun and forward-looking while also being very 90s.
Yeah, I nailed it. Yeah, I mean, it really was weird how this split the 2 episodes that are kind of equidistant either side of it, isn't it? Like it's not the 1990 episode and it's not the 1996 episode, but it does seem to be a distillation of them both. And you're right, things are optimistic.
Yeah.
So let's look at the tropes then. TW tropes. Presenter having to speak over louder sounds. Well, I think that's a definite, isn't it?
I mean, Kate, God bless her, actually acknowledges it at the end of at the end of her sound deadening piece. She says, "This is really noisy. I need." Or something. I can't remember what she says, but she essentially.
But at least I have these. Yeah. She really is talking loudly over a lot of background noises.
Yeah.
Not on the bus, but as you say, at the end when she's in Times Square, and then she walks off into the distance. This question is Maggie Philbin's sleeves don't match her body, but this could be female presenters' sleeves don't match their body.
No, it can only be either Maggie or Kate because they're essentially the same person.
So should I put Maggie Philbin in commas?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right. And so, I disagree with the first outfit. Sorry, the second outfit. I do disagree with the second outfit. And I know you kind of did a little leap for joy.
She's wearing a waistcoat, Mark.
Yeah, but that's different rules. But the first one I think is spot on. She's not wearing sleeves.
No. Her arms are, arms are clearly different to the...
So I am happy on that one. There's no Stanley Kubrick reference except the one I made. No. And there's nothing to do with oil rigs. Astonishingly.
No.
Now, I would argue there is no suspiciously obvious brand name on the ad-free BBC.
Giant advert for Camel cigarettes.
That is neither here nor there. They were on location, and that is just,
there's a point where the
set up to confuse you.
Literally front and centre of the camera, and the camera has to move in order to see the bus.
If any of the products that they had demonstrated, which I think is the spirit of the question. Right. Then I'd agree with you. But I think the fact that they're out in the back, look, we put this in because of bloody Feeler, when Howard and the team couldn't stop mentioning them. Whereas no one says anything out loud, and you don't see any kind of obvious brand names, nor, to be fair, do you see any masked over. The closest I'd get is NASA, but I don't think it's really a product. So I'm not going to take it, Russ. I'm just not going to take it. What am I, Russ? Say it. Go on.
You're meant to be a pencil pusher, Mark. You should push that pencil a bit more.
I know exactly where to push it, Russ. Clear and blatant line.
Well, yes. The IQ segment is total lies.
Yes. Howard is not speaking to anyone on a mobile phone.
No.
And he also lies about something else, doesn't he? He mentions something in passing. I can't remember what it is. Oh, super strength Velcro. No such thing.
No such thing exists.
Absolutely. No evil farmers? I can't remember any evil farmers.
No farming content whatsoever.
No. I didn't spot any casual sexism.
No.
The closest I could think of is... I've always found it peculiar, the male-dominated nature of gynecology. You thought women would be much happier kind of going to a female doctor, and they probably are. But at the same time, there just aren't any, or there weren't.
Did we mention that the gynecologists look like Leslie Crowther? Did I forget to say
that? We didn't mention that. No, it was in the notes, but we didn't mention it. He does look like Leslie Crowther but in general, there's no real casual sex. Not like the old days. Lab or space filled with darkness and coloured lights.
The studio itself.
Problem with that is that we tick it every time.
That in a way.
Yeah, but nothing on. It's always been a location thing when they go somewhere and then they artificially light it.
Yeah.
And I can't think of anything.
There's a lot of studio-based stuff this time, though, wasn't there? There was only a couple of location ones.
So I'm going to go with no. Dutch angle, 100%.
Back of the bus.
Item presented from a gantry? No, sadly not. Awful joke from Howard Stableford?
I mean,
I can't think. He's actually quite amusing.
Awful, awful isn't. Maybe change that to dad joke from Howard Stableford.
All right, yeah, okay. So then we can instantly tick it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't think any of his jokes are awful. I just think
they're not awful, but they have been in the past, though. All right, I'll change that to dad joke from Howard Stableford.
The fat shaming bit.
That's a classic dad bit of business, isn't it?
And there was also thanking himself for handing over into himself in the opening.
Yeah,
sequence.
That's nice. We'll take that. You're right. Neither are awful, but they're not great either. And episode ends on a damp squib.
Oh, yeah.
I think this is up for debate.
Really?
It's one of the best endings of the show we've seen so far. It just wasn't meant to be.
It was still the...
I tell you what, it was one of the highlights of the show, but I will agree with you. I was just being tricksy there. I would agree with you because the logic of finishing a relatively heavyweight show on Velcro furniture... Absolutely, it confuses me no end because the only way it works is if it doesn't work, and I do not believe for 1 second they meant it not to.
No.
So if it had worked, it would have been, if Carmen had stuck to the wall and then they successfully built the furniture and demonstrated it, it would have been appalling.
Yeah.
And I think you have to judge them on what they wanted, not what went wrong. The fact that it ends up being highly amusing and really enjoyable is absolutely an accident. So I'm happy to tick that. Which ends our audit, Russ.
Oh, marvellous.
On our own damn squib. How exciting.
Well, it's nice. I feel like we ticked off a lot there. I have to say, I do enjoy the old box ticking exercises.
You do? Good.
I mean, I doubt anybody listening does, but who cares about them?
I doubt anyone's listening.
Well, it gives us something to do, doesn't it? Right, Mark, I'm going to have to sign off now because I've just realised that the desk that my computer is sitting on is starting to come loose. I think maybe it's Velcroed together.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It's about to collapse. So,
oh no. You need to get that super strength Velcro all the kids are talking about.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd say to you, Russ, is like, since I woke you up early to do this, what are you going to do with the rest of your day?
Oh yeah, bloody hell, it's only 7:30.
I know, bloody hell.
We've only been doing this for 5.5 hours, or however long you've been doing it. I've got loads of time. Well, actually, what I'll do is I'll fire up Doom and have a little blast on that. Assuming my desk stays together, and I can.
Yeah, and you can find your pregnancy test to run it on. Well, good luck with that, Russ.
Yeah. Actually, no, I might just pop down the old fishmongers and get myself 16 billion crabs and play on that. Anyway, so thanks again, everyone, for listening. You can find us on YouTube and Instagram and things like that if you want to.
Twitter and Instagram, yeah, absolutely, because you will see some of the images that we talk about. And they're both at TW Audit Time.
Absolutely. And next time, we'll do our Christmas special. So that's something to play around the Yule log and the turkey when the family's all around. I'm sure it'll be lovely. We're not sorted out yet, but yes, next time will be a Christmas special, so look forward to that. But until next time, I will say goodbye, and you will say goodbye as well, Mark, won't you?
I will say goodbye. Goodbye.
And we will see you tomorrow.